Who has more Bredl's pythons than anyone alive? Nick. So we include Nick Mutton in this thing, and we're sending like eye buttons all over the place. And we had Bredl's at West Liberty, and Lucas had his, and then Nick had his. And it was just so funny because the person who should have been freaking out was Lucas, and he wasn't. And meanwhile, Nick's like, where the hell's the data? I was like, it's going to be okay, man. Like, it's all good. UVB, everybody's favorite topic, not controversial at all. These things live outside, and they live in habitats where their trees are very limited, where most of them are. But there's oftentimes a very well-established shrub layer present. And every single time I caught a wild hognose snake, and I have my students doing this out in Iowa, we're walking around with solarimeters, and we take a UVB reading. And what is really interesting to me, it could be, it may not, I'm not necessarily saying they're active because of the UVB, but we're getting UVB ratings on the Ferguson scale of like 4, 6, 7, 8, like way up there. And they're out and about doing their thing. We also get them down, 2 to 3, but on average, it's like 4, 4.5.
This episode is brought to you by Reptiles to You. If you're shipping reptiles, you need a company built by reptile industry professionals that you can trust. That's why I'm excited to be working with Ben Gann, the owner of Reptiles to You. Ben and the rest of his team are incredibly committed to quality work and customer service. They specialize in live animal shipping, working directly with carriers to ensure your animals arrive safely, on time, and in great condition. With a reputation built on that high level of service, integrity, and expertise, Reptiles to You is the absolute standard by which other reptile shipping companies are measured. Don't risk your next shipment. Visit reptiles2u.com today. This episode is brought to you by Soul Reptile. Soul Reptile is a boutique, direct-to-consumer lighting and husbandry company focused on bringing the latest reptile physiology and lighting science into the hobby. They're the creators of the Vision LED, the most powerful UVA1 LED available for reptile lighting. They also produce precisely tuned near-infrared systems designed for specialized animals, including invertebrates. If you're serious about replicating natural sunlight and dialing in your animal's environment, Soul Reptile is pushing that science forward. Soul Reptile, the science of the sun. This episode is brought to you in part by Exoterra. If you're as passionate about reptiles and amphibians as I am, you know that quality matters. I use Exoterra products on all my reptile and amphibian enclosures, which is why I'm excited to be partnering with them. From naturalistic decor to innovative lighting and enclosures of all sizes, Exoterra has everything you need for your cold-blooded companions. Exoterra, make your reptiles feel at home. This is the Expert and the Idiot podcast. If you like the show and you'd like to support us, there's a link to our Patreon in the description below. Some benefits include getting access to new episodes up to a month in advance. There's also links to USARK and USARK Florida. If you're not already a member, please sign up. Enjoy the show. I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing well. Can't complain. Wouldn't help if I did. So,
I know. But we do it anyway sometimes.
Yeah, we do. I don't know why, but we do. So,
so the kind of the whole reason that I wanted to get you back on was we had like a little conversation. Well, so back during the holidays, you said some really nice things about me.
Yeah, well, I meant it all, man. You're doing a great job.
Thank you, Dr. Loughman. I appreciate that. You said very, very kind things, and to the point where it brought a tear to my eye because I'm an emotional baby boy. Okay. And it made my eyes well up, and I reached out to you because it is primarily due to the fact that I kind of have some insecurities about my intelligence, because when I was a kid, I wasn't doing well in school, and they wanted to put me in what was called back then special ed.
Yeah.
And the reaction that my mother had was maybe not the best reaction. I think they did the best they could with what they knew at the time. And I got taken out of school, and I was homeschooled. And so I've always had, I didn't even try to go to college, right? Because hearing what I heard as a kid, and them wanting to put me into special ed, and then hearing what my mother said about that, there was like all these things that for a 7-8-year-old kid, it like got stuck into my hard drive, And so hearing, you said I was bright or intelligent or something like that. Right. And I'm literally sitting there like with that choked up feeling in my throat, like somebody thinks I'm intelligent.
Man, I think there are a lot of people that listen to this show that think you're intelligent. Just so.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. But I reached out, and then come to find out, you kind of have a similar story. And I want to, I just told my story, and I want you to tell your story, because I bet my bottom dollar, and I know from talking to other guys that, I know other guys that were put in what was back then in the 80s, 90s called special ed. And they're like, dude, don't tell anybody. Like, they're so ashamed of it. And they kind of carry this shame that they're like, they feel like a lesser person, and they don't want people to know that about them. And so this is my first time talking publicly about this.
Sure.
And yeah, I'd love to hear your story and your experience. This episode is brought to you by Chewy. Most people think of Chewy for dog and cat food, but if you keep reptiles, you should absolutely be using them too. Chewy carries everything from all the brands you trust, like Exoterra, Arcadia, Zoomed, and everything in between. Live feeders to frozen rodents, enclosures, substrate, heat lamps, thermostats, water bowls, misters, and more, all in one place, shipped straight to your door. Sign up for Chewy Plus today, free for 30 days. You get free shipping, 5% rewards, and exclusive offers. I use Chewy, and you should too.
Well, a lot of people, they see the doctor and they're like, he must be a genius. I'm not a genius. There are hundreds of millions, billions of people that are smarter than me. My big thing before I tell my story is I had parents that were teachers. Like, when the family business is teaching, there's nothing else on earth I can do. Like, I can't fix anything. The running joke in all my labs is like, if we got to fix something, grad students literally come running with hammers and screwdrivers and drills. We're like, don't let them even start. Because we'll talk about why that's not in the cards for me. But my dad was a special education teacher. So my mom, biological mother, was an English teacher. And then my stepmother was also a special education teacher. And so, they knew the way things worked. And in the 80s, I will say it's very different than it is today. And it was a scarlet letter. It was absolutely a scarlet letter back in the day. In West Virginia, the gifted kids would go off to the gifted classes in the schools that I was in. And then the people that were not gifted would work with the teacher to give back all the assignments and basically do all the busy work in the classroom. Jeez. And then the gifted kids would come back in, and it was like, thanks for giving me back my A. And here I am not getting an A. So
that is what horrible segregation.
Yeah,
like,
it was literal segregation. You're absolutely correct.
Yeah.
And it did make you feel like a secondary citizen. And then to add insult to injury, I've been a nerd my entire life. And so all my friends were like my friends in elementary school, junior high, high school were the valedictorians. Like one went off to Virginia Tech, and I don't even know if he graduated. He may have been poached by Dell before he graduated, and he made a chip that is now in every single computer, and he's a bazillionaire. And then my other friend went off to get a PhD, or went off to WVU and got a mechanical engineering degree, I think, then went to Michigan State, got a doctorate in engineering. Like, my doctorate's flipping rocks. His is like
Dr. Rock Flipper.
Yeah, exactly. His is like building bridges and things. But the thing that was kind of critical to my story is that I was and still am a complete enigma. I can micro focus on something like no other. Some people would say that I have some kind of tism, or or when I'm on the spectrum. Great. I don't care if I am or I'm not. You know what I mean? It's my secret weapon. That's the way I've always viewed it. The fact that there was a week when I was in 6th grade, where I found a katydid on my front door at night, because I was the weirdo kid that would run around at nighttime lurking through the neighborhood, picking bugs off people's doors. Don't recommend that. But I caught this katydid and was like, what the hell is this? This is different than all the other ones, because I was really into bugs back then. And my parents were able to get me the resources. And, I'm in 6th grade, like rattling off genus names and family names, and I understand the life cycle. I just did nothing but read about katydids for 10 days. It was insane. So to me, that part of my academic life, that's my secret weapon. But what wasn't involved were numbers. The second a number gets involved, and I have to do arithmetic, that's when things go to absolute hell. And I have basically mathematical dyslexia is what it amounts to. Like when we were in our pre-algebra class in 7th grade, that's when I was introduced to negative numbers. And Jesus, holy God, there's nothing more evil to me than a negative number. And then you add a fraction, and that's proof Satan exists. Like, no, I can't do it. And in science, we always say science and math. And so I would be lying if I didn't say that getting out of high school, I was just my parents taught at the high school I was at, and their friends were all the teachers, and they would be going up. Like, my algebra teacher went to my dad and was like, we don't know what the hell's wrong with him. We're doing our best. He's trying really hard. He just cannot do this. Like, it's just not in the cards for him. And then meanwhile, in my microbiology class, my teacher is going down to my dad the same day. He tells this story and is like, Zach's the smartest kid we've ever had. He just gets this, and he focuses like no other. So that's where my learning disability was exceptionally frustrating, because on the one hand, I'm being told, you can do this, you're doing great. But then on the other hand, I'm being told at the exact same time, like, you suck.
Yeah.
So I had to basically figure out ways to get through. Now, I will say that my parents were kind of instrumental in that. They didn't shame me. They fought the system. I mean, my dad and stepmother and mother, to be honest, they all thought that the whole way special ed was done back in the day was horrible. And they hated that you had this scarlet letter if you were in those classes. And so basically what I had to do is I just had to figure out a way to adapt. And what's really funny is there's a guy named Malcolm Gladwell. I highly recommend people that are even remotely, if you like things that make you think, you need to listen to his books, read his books. He's got a podcast called Revolutionist History or something like that. And I'm going to throw a different take at this, because Gladwell says that people like you and me, that don't do the status quo, we're the people that actually are responsible for innovation, because I could not just go to like pre-calc class in college and pass it. I had to figure out a way to learn pre-calculus in a way where I had just enough academic inertia to get a C on those damn tests and fall across the finish line. Not, I'm talking like as I'm falling, I'm praying I'm going to make it just across the damn line. And so that's what I had to do. So like I had to learn how to do math just enough to pass. And I had math teachers, especially near the end of my high school days, Mr. Wheeler. I love that man because he was rooting for me. But he was like, just show me how you're doing this problem. And I was like, okay. And then I did it. And he's sitting there at the end of it and was like, huh. That's all he said. He was like, you added parts and you took away parts, but you got the right answer somehow. And that's what I had to do. I just had to figure out my own way. And what was weird is like, we're taught this is the way. But I couldn't do it that way. I had to go the other way. And that's where Gladwell says, you know, the people that kind of buck the norm and figure out how to get past these hurdles, oftentimes those are the people that make new discoveries or come up with a more efficient way to do things. And so that was kind of me in a nutshell. When I was in undergrad, I'm not afraid to tell anybody this. I have tenure. I'm not going anywhere. I graduated with a 2.9999 GPA, which rounds up to a B. And when you looked at my grades, they were so bass-ackwards. We're talking like senior level biology classes that the people I graduated with were like me with math, like falling across the finish line. I had like a 98% in those classes.
Wow.
Because that's the way my brain worked. Like I could do that. I'd been training my entire life. Didn't realize it at the time. But when I was running around in 6th grade, plucking katydids off front porches and reading everything I could, that made it so that when I had ecology, when I was in my senior year of college, that was just like a breeze. Meanwhile, Chem 1, the class you take as a freshman when you're a bio major, I failed it the first time. And when I say I failed it, I didn't like today when I'm advising students, like, oh, I failed that test. I'm like, well, what did you get? An 80. I'm like, you did not fail that test. Shut up. Like, no. The first chemistry test I took, I got a 2. A 2% out of 100.
What?
Mm-hmm. And the only reason why I got a 2% is he gave you 2% for putting your name on the test. And I answered every single question. So there you go. And then I took it again. And I increased my grade quite a bit. That semester, I got up to a 20%. But we got the professor out that was there. We got in a new professor. And that professor had a little bit of empathy and compassion. And I went to her office hours like all the time. Her name was Dr. Lee. She spoke very broken English. But she said, like, if you're here every week and you show me that you're learning, that may be good enough for you to get through. And by God, I went to her office 2 times a week and I tried. That was my other thing is like, I fail well. I said this on one of our most recent episodes. I don't think we teach people how to fail well. I think we teach people that I don't even like calling it fail. Like when you try something and you don't succeed, we should say, try again, you know, and that's it. And what I was good at was like, well, I got 0 out of 100 on that test. I'm obviously doing something wrong. Maybe we should shift the approach. And so that's what I would do is I would just shift the approach on everything. And inevitably you end up figuring out what works and you get across. So undergrad was the hardest degree I got out of all my 3 degrees. My master's and my PhD were a complete cakewalk compared to my undergrad because I had to do physics, organic chemistry, pre-calculus, stats. And so the thing that I think people need to realize is like, we're all good at things and we're all not good at things. Nobody's good at everything. And I don't think it's right to let societal norms dictate whether that makes you intelligent or not.
Mm.
I can tell you that I've been in the field with herpers. Some of them don't have college degrees. They are better biologists than many biologists I know that have 3 letters behind their name.
Wow.
And that's been a huge driving force for me, because what happened is I can't do math, right? So my first semester of grad school, my wife and I got married, and there's a really funny element to this. My wife is the smartest person I've ever met. I've met a lot of smart people. She blows them away. When I met her was our sophomore year of college in March of '99. And she was studying her ass off for this botany test. And I was the other person in the lab studying his ass off for the botany test. And now we have a child. Like, that's literally, it was like nerd love at its finest. And so, but she didn't get less than an A on anything. Like, every single thing Kathy did, she got an A on. That's not an exaggeration. And that's my partner in life, is that. And she would study for her tests, and she has photographic memory. So she would just put her notebook in her brain.
Wow.
And then I have to actually learn the shit. Like, if the neural networks aren't made, it's not going to be there on the test day. And what's really funny is she would get an A, I would get a B, and she'll admit to this. 15 years later, 20 years later, it would come up like, so how exactly does blah blah work? And Kathy would be like, I don't freaking know. And then I'm like, well, here's how it works. Because the difference was I had to like commit it with my process, and she was able to do the short-term thing. And I think a lot of people, well, I know this because I'm in the business of education. A lot of professors will tell you, teachers, our favorite students are the BC students, because the BC students have to really oftentimes commit more, because there might be a little bit of a difficulty there. And they have a tendency to be okay with not doing well or being better at it. Like I have students that have to get an A, and if they don't get an A, you would think Western civilization has come to a freaking end. I mean, there's crying, and there's emails, and there's rage, and it's just like, come the hell on. But for me, I just learned to fail well. But that first semester anyway, first of all, to get married, my wife told me, you've got to pass physics. Like, we're getting married when we graduate. You're not going to graduate if you don't pass this damn class. Like, pass the freaking class. And we had been accepted to Florida Tech in Melbourne. And I had to get a 70 to graduate, and I got a 70.5. I mean, we're talking like I fell across the line. My dad took me out for all my degrees one time for a grade, and it was that D. That C. That was it. Because, and I've never used that crap a day in my freaking life, which also is annoying. But anyway, we're in Florida Tech, and I took biostats my first semester there. Ultimately, we were there only one semester. It was not a good fit for Kathy and I because we were both in grad school. But I'm taking this class, and it's another math class. And, I have all the fear and trepidation of the previous 5 freaking years, because since it took me 3 years to pass Gen Chem, I was a super senior in undergrad. And I'd spent and we were doing these things called t-tests and ANOVAs, which are very basic statistics. And back then you had to like plug all this stuff into this program called Excel and create these formulas and put your data in there. And I mean, it was just awful. I spent like 25 to 30 hours a week just doing my freaking stats homework. Like, that's all. Wow. It was awful. And I was just getting C after C after C. And when you get to grad school, a C is a failing grade oftentimes. So I'm like, I am screwed. What the hell is going on? So we get to the last week of class, and this was a major moment in my life as a scientist, as a biologist, as a human being, because for literally, I was 23 at that time. So for 23 freaking years, I've been told, you can't do math, you suck. You can't do math, you suck. My internal narratives telling me you can't do math, you suck. And the last day, for some reason, the GA, the graduate assistant, took us into a computer lab, And she said, okay, we're now going to do all those homework questions you did all semester in an hour. And I was like, what? I put in like 150 hours of time. There's no freaking way. And that's when I learned about the fact that in science, a lot of times the statistics and the math, you don't have to do that. You have to get the data. You have to understand how to clean the data, organize the data, make the data okay. And then we do this wonderful thing we call plug and chug. You plug it into the computer and the computer chugs out your result. And I just got goosebumps thinking about it. That was the day where I was like, all right, the game has changed. I don't have to sit with my computer anymore. And I also realized in that moment, I can actually do science. I just can't do the freaking arithmetic math. Like I understand experimental design. I understand how to test for normality. These are statistical things. I know what to do when my data is not normal. I know what to do. Like here, big 100,000, 30,000 foot view concepts. I got those like immediately. And in a freaking hour, I did every single homework question. I got them all right. And it's the only time in my life where I both fully loved a human and wanted them to die a horrible death in the exact same moment. Because I was like, why in the F didn't we learn this to begin with? Like, why did you drag my ass through the mud to get to this point? Like So anyway, so so at that moment I was like, you need to change the narrative in your head because you need to be pragmatic. We need to figure out like we got the problem, which is math. We just need to know how to pivot around it. And that's another one of my secret weapons now is like, I have no problem telling the world I can't do this. But as scientists, what we do a lot of is this thing called collaboration. Now, sometimes your collaborations are great. And sometimes they're not so great. We're going to focus on great. So I ultimately went to a school in West Virginia called Marshall University. It was wonderful. It was in a herpetology lab. Like I couldn't believe that I was getting paid to run around the state of West Virginia and catch salamanders and snakes. And I mean, it was just like euphoric. And I tell my students all the time that there was a moment where I was laying in a field measuring a smallmouth salamander in Bistema texanum in Point Pleasant. That's where Mothman lives. And I wasn't making any money. Like my wife and I had enough money to pay the rent and get some food and maybe drive the car. Like there was a 2-month period of time where we didn't have enough money for gas. And that's just a typical grad student. I didn't care. I was so ungodly happy that I was just laying in a field with this salamander. I'd found it that people had said it doesn't live there. And I was like, well, this bit of evidence, this bit of evidence, this bit of evidence says otherwise. I didn't listen to them. I went with my gut, found it. And I realized like I've got a skill that's unique. It's special. It's just no one gives a shit about that skill when you're in 5th grade.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But now that I'm 20 something getting into conservation and biology, a lot of people really care about this skill. And that's when I realized it's just BS. Like as we mature, it's very difficult to let go of what happens to you when you're young. And I'm not belittling that. But I do think like it is okay to just kind of look in a mirror every now and then and be like, I am good at this. Like, let's talk about podcasting. You're really freaking good at podcasting. Clint and I have a podcast. Okay. How the hell do you get trained for this?
Yeah.
Like this is it's not lonely. That's a little too dramatic, but at the same time, it's not like you can go and get trained. Eric Burke and Owen didn't come and be like, this is what you do, Zach. Like you just have to have the courage to start it, be willing to put yourself out there for the whole freaking world to judge. And then when you get that feedback, that's good, take it. But when you get the negative feedback, don't crumble. Like take it into consideration and move on. And that's what I do. And I'll make one other argument. I also think that one of the reasons why I am a good professor is my background. I argue like I have more kids. I have to spend more time lifting people up and getting them to finish. That's hard. It is not hard to take somebody who has natural ability and just let them fly to the finish line. It's much more daunting to take somebody who has the self-doubt, who doesn't think they can do it and convince them they can, and then help them do it. And that's what I love, because I had a lot of people in my life that did that for me. And it's like a pay it forward kind of thing. But I've had a couple students in my lab that they applied to like grad school, and they were literally told in emails, like, I looked at your GPA, I've looked at your CV, I don't even know why you wrote me an email. Like,
wow.
Like, how much of a freaking asshole are you if you have this position that people aspire to, and that's how you communicate with people? Like, I don't give a crap if you figured out a cure for cancer. You're dead to me if you have that response. Like, maybe lift people up a little bit. And sometimes people can't, like, they just don't have the ability to do exactly what they want to do, but they might have the ability to do some support piece. So do it. But I'll say, like, that's why I love herpetoculture. Is I live in the world of ivory tower, academia, and then I do a lot of conservation work. So I'm always dealing with bureaucracy and agencies and the whole pay to play system. And, living over in CCR land, or talking to somebody who has a completely different life experience from me, but knows a hell of a lot more about how to keep this snake alive. That just makes the world awesome. Like, diversity is key kind of thing.
Truly.
So people take me, my wife keeps me humble, because she could have gotten a PhD with her hands tied behind her back. I had to get mine. That is the other thing people don't realize. I got my master's degree and I was like, I'm done. At the time, in the early 2000s in herpetology, what people were doing for their dissertation didn't really interest me. I had no interest in what was being done. And I had found crawdads at that time and was heading into crayfish biology pretty hard. But I got my job at West Liberty, and my boss, my chair, who was one of my professors there, and he was the one that recruited me. I said to him in my interview, I do not have to get a PhD, right? Like, I'm okay with just the master's. And he said, yeah, that's fine. And at the time we were West Liberty State College. Then we became West Liberty University, like, by the end of my second year at the school. And there's a rule to be a university, you have to have X percentage of your faculty have to have PhDs. And West Liberty didn't have that percentage. And so, rather infamously, my boss came down, he didn't even come into my office. His head just appeared in the doorway. And he was like, remember how I told you didn't have to get your doc? And I was like, yeah. He was like, well, things change. You need to be enrolled in one by this time next year. We have to let you go. And then he walked away.
No.
Like, what the fuck? Okay.
That's terrible.
So, and then I couldn't get into a freaking PhD program because this horrible thing called the GRE, where for me to become Dr. Zac, I had to figure out the ratio of purple ponies that had horseshoes on that were gold compared to pink ponies that were climbing the unicorn that didn't have horseshoe. I mean, it was just like the questions were ridiculous. And so that was another example of a pivot. I was supposed to go to WVU. I could not get the freaking quantitative score. I was blowing the verbal, which is like reading and reading comprehension. I was annihilating that. I annihilated the writing section, and then couldn't get what I needed on the verbal. And then a school called Indiana State, there was a guy there who studied crayfish and was like, we'll take you. You're doing great stuff. Like, give us that test score. And so, I had a university an hour away, but I had to get my PhD at a university that was 8 hours away on the far side of Indiana. But that's just what you got to do. Like, I tell students all the time, it's the power of the pivot. I could have been like, yeah, no, I'm not doing that. My life would have ended up completely different. But I just was like, you know what? Gut check. We can do this. It's going to suck. Wow. And I started my PhD, became a full professor, and my son was born in the same 10-day period of time. So, it's just grit. There's going to be students that listen to this and be like, oh God, he's talking about grit again. But that's the thing. It's like, for me, having grit and being able to accept this is a weakness, but it doesn't define me. And it's going to suck, but I just have to keep putting one foot forward until I get past it. And it's made me who I am today. And I'm glad I had that life experience. That's the thing that people don't realize. If I didn't have to bust my ass, if I didn't have to pivot, if I didn't feel the shame and everything when I put everything into a test and got a 2 because I put my name on it, that makes me a better professor, I think. Because when I have a kid and I can see them and they want to talk to me, but they feel like they can't because it's just like horribly awkward to them. I just remind them, hey, I've been there, man. Get in here. And then we have a conversation, and it's helped me.
Wow. That's incredible. And it has to make you such a better professor.
It helps.
For the kids that are like you and me, and for the kids that are out there that need the help, it has to help immensely.
Yes.
Maybe not for you. It probably doesn't change your life experience that much, but it sure as hell has to change theirs.
Yeah. Well, the thing that I tell them is that you can't quit. Like a lot of people in the post-COVID world we live in, anxiety it's just a different beast than it was before 2020. And everybody that's in education knows this. And I'll get a lot of students who they don't do well on something and then they just give up and implode. And I kind of roll in and I'm like, we're not doing this. Like, you want this, you should get this. This is one hurdle out of your whole degree. You can get past this. It's just going to be painful. So I think a lot of people can never be comfortable being uncomfortable. And by God, I made a freaking career out of being comfortable when you're uncomfortable. So
it is important. And I have to remind my soon to be 11-year-old all the time that nobody is good at anything right away.
No.
You have to learn that thing. You have to get good at that thing. No skateboarder was ever good at skateboarding the first time they picked up a skateboard. It was agonizing for me to start this podcast.
Yeah.
And now it's one of my favorite things to do. And I tried to quit. I'm not going to lie. My anxiety continuously got the better of me. I would keep getting past these hurdles and, it would be like, okay, I got to get the equipment. I got to get the computer. I got to get the software. I got to design the background. I got to do, and I'm just going through one thing after another. And I swear to you, after every single thing that I accomplished, I would tell my wife, you know what? It's really not that big of a deal if I just don't do it. And, we have a computer now and, the kids can use it for school. And she'd be like, no, you really need to do this. And I can't, the last episode we did together, we talked about enrichment. Yep. This is my enrichment. Mm-hmm. I don't know where I'd be without it, but I wouldn't be as happy as I am right now. Yeah. I can tell you that much. I feel like I have a purpose now in life. As silly as that may sound.
I don't think it's silly. I think that's what guides us is when you don't have a purpose, you wake up we can say our family is our purpose. We can say bringing money and paying the mortgage gives us purpose, but everybody has something that they can be passionate about. And I don't think it belittles saying like, I'm passionate about snakes. I have a family. I'm passionate about my family too, but I'm also passionate about snakes, like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But when you find that, it's a massive driver because it basically makes it so when you wake up in the morning, no matter what, at some point in the day, I'm going to think about crayfish, snakes, teaching, zooci, my wife, my son. And it just gives me something to make sure to work towards making better. And I really feel like if I didn't have this natural history thing that I'm really good at, I don't know if I would have made it through all the math and all the doubting and all the other things. And when I look at my students now with just a tiny bit of low key resentment. I grew up in West Virginia in the 80s liking snakes.
Yeah.
There was nothing cool about that. I was also a teacher's kid. And a lot of teachers' kids get like showered with benefits. my parents were old school. My dad came from a blue collar family, and he was like, "You will get nothing." I was like, "Okay." And then he would make my schedule, and he would give me the best teachers, but oftentimes the best teachers were the hardest teachers. And then he would just roll in front of everybody and be like, "Don't take it easy on him today," and then walk out. And I'm like, "Oh my god, like, we did it again." So but yeah, it's definitely given me an outlook that I don't think I'd be who I am if I didn't have that way growing up. But in the 80s though, like, you were a target. Like, I was a target. Like, I got bullied relentlessly. And I'm talking like, it wasn't like I'm at the top of a flight of steps and I heard "Time to fly, bug boy," and I was flying. That was a good day. Like, literally pushed downstairs and everybody's just standing there like looking at me. And I'm in a bloody heap at the bottom of it. And I was like, "Oh, well, that's fun." Note to self: don't come down this stairwell at 11:30 ever again. You know what I mean? Like, that was kind of my upbringing. And today, it's awesome. Like, they come in and it's almost like a badge of honor. Like, I have ball pythons, I have corn snakes. Like, my son just graduated high school, and he's a carbon copy of me. That was not intentional. I actually was scared to death. I wanted him to find his own way, but it must be genetic. He was in the band like I was. And like, they celebrated the fact that he was the lizard kid. And I was just like, God, life would have been so different if that was the way it was for me. So, I'm lurking in the shadows, running around at night, trying, like, catching bugs because I didn't want to do it during the day when people would see me. So anyway, so no, but so society has made some changes, which are good. And I've got 100+ majors, and they're all interested in animals and conservation and everything. And we're a little school in northern West Virginia, so it's kind of nice that this place is celebrated. But it's also cool that there's podcasts, because when I was 16, 17, I would have listened to my podcast, like, that would have been church to me. And now we have all these outlets, because back in the day, there were no freaking outlets. They did, at least in my experience, there weren't outlets. Like, I was an island of one. And I was fine with that, though, because I've always been a loner. But it would have been cool to talk to somebody. I'd start talking about snakes, and my friends would be like, "Don't they kill you?" I'm like, "No, they don't. We've been over this like 3,000 times." You know what I mean? But anyway.
Yeah, it's do you because of who you are and sort of the your public persona and the podcast and everything, do you have people specifically coming to you and the college and the university now because of that?
They find me. Yes. I've had several grad students that listen to CCR. I say it at the beginning and end of every episode. I had one of my absolute most cherished students. His name's Tyler. I can't say his last name. Swishsow. We did an episode of CCR with him. He was from coastal California. You can't get more different than West Virginia than coastal California.
Yeah.
Okay. You just can't. Northern, kind of north central. And I wrote an article for Reptiles magazine on false water cobras. And at the end of the article, they have the link, Dr. Zac Loughman teaches at West Liberty University, blah, blah, blah. And Tyler had a subscription, and he kept snakes and everything. And he went to the back of that, and he would always read. And he was like, first time I read about a professor in Reptiles magazine. And I was like, all right, I'm going to school there. And that's how he came to be. And, he just finished not only his undergrad, but his master's. And he was wicked intelligent. He did his master's and his undergrad in 5 years. And I did my undergrad in 5 years.
My word.
And he was one of our Iowa people that was out in the field. He did a really cool study looking at the gut biome of wild hognose snakes, comparing the easterns to the westerns. It was super cool. So, but the other thing is, like, I also have a tendency to bring in students that might be a little bit out of my league, because my job, I'm almost like a coach. That's what I kind of view myself as. And coaches, you can have star players that are better than you, but you have the ability to get them to where they need to be. And that's what I take very, very seriously. and I do my best to get all of them to where they need to be.
That's so cool.
Mm-hmm.
I hope my boy can come to your university.
There you go.
University.
Bring him up.
So I want you to, because he's going to listen to this. Mm-hmm. And he did a PowerPoint presentation for school. Unfortunately, I didn't get to see it, but it was all on hognose snakes.
He has good taste.
I want you to tell me. So first of all, he wants a hognose snake.
Yep.
And I'm like, we gotta research and figure out what kind of hognose snake you want, because there ain't no way we're doing a morph.
Yeah.
We gotta,
yeah.
I want to do a locality. I want to do something where we can appreciate the natural beauty of the animal. But he's going to listen to this. Junior's going to listen to this. And I want you to tell me, I want you to go full tism. Tell me everything you can about hognose snakes so he can listen to this and enjoy it. You have 6 hours. Go.
I can probably go for 30 because I'm writing the book. I love hognose snakes. That's, I feel like the hognose snake in herpetoculture is not the same as the hognose snakes that we're studying out in Iowa. It's kind of like saying a Pekingese is a timber wolf. Like that's a false equivalency. Mm-hmm. So in the wild, Western hogs are the one that you want to get, mainly because most of the places in the East, they're legal. Eastern hognose snakes are a royal pain in the ass, in my opinion, to keep alive. There's some people that are really good at it. I'm okay at it. But they have such a wide range that they're illegal to keep in any state where you're not allowed to keep native species. And so like they were illegal in West Virginia, now they're not. So I had to grandfather mine in and all that stuff when we got our herp regs. So with the Westerns, the thing that's amazing about these snakes to me, and I don't think people give them the due that they're due. And for the record, I'm starting to understand how the ball python people feel when they get all the ball python hate sent their way. But this is an animal that lives in such extremes that they're in, Alberta, Canada, where they're only active on the surface for like 4.5 months. For 8 months, they're underground, trying not to die with the impending encroachment of the frost line. Meanwhile, you go like down to southern Missouri, and the Westerns that live there, plains hogs that live there, they're active for 10 months out of the year. So this is if you have that kind of extreme in your distribution, that tells us that you have a lot of what we call ecological plasticity, which basically means you are adaptable. But at the same time, they're not adaptable because they live in grasslands, and as soon as trees show up, they go away. How the hell does that work? Like, how do you live in Alberta and you live in Missouri and you go through these crazy temperature, differentials, but then a forest shows up and you're toast? So as an ecologist, that whole thing is just absolutely fascinating to me. And the reason why that happens is that these animals need soil they can dig in. They are extremely fossorial. They live underground a lot. And that's the part of keeping hognose snakes where I feel like we are just missing a massive opportunity. We're always talking about, this kind of new push, which I love in herpetoculture, which is keeping things naturalistically, giving them opportunities to do species appropriate behaviors, enrichment, all that jazz. With plains hognose snakes, you can go hog wild. They're just the opposite of an arboreal snake. Instead of going up, they go down. And so if you give them substrates that they can actually dig in and their tunnels don't collapse, it's kind of like owning a snake ant farm, which is super freaking cool. And you can get them to do the exact behaviors we see in our animals in Iowa with radio transmitters. We're tracking them. They're tracking them today because I got pictures from the field. And we see all these interactions with burrows they have and how they'll get out of the burrow and bask, how they'll put a third of their body out of the burrow, and then a threat comes and boom, they go down the burrow. They'll do different types of basking in and around the burrow based off whether they need to warm up quickly or they need to warm up slowly. If it's too hot, they do one behavior. If it's not hot enough, they do another. And I've spent a lot of time in these cages right here setting up my animals, trying to get them to replicate what we're seeing in nature, and they do it. And to me, when you can get an animal to do what you see it doing in nature, in a cage, in an enclosure, you're probably doing something right. And you literally brought in a little piece of nature to your home. And you can do that with a hognose, because the other thing that's wonderful about hogs is they don't get to be 9 feet long. I keep this other snake called a false water cobra. Holy hell. I have some that are bigger than people's blackhead pythons, I've just found out. And they're a pain in the butt to deal with when they get that big. An enormous female hog is going to be 3.5 or 4 feet. That's as big as they get. Most of the time, they're more around the 2 foot, 30 inch mark.
Yeah.
So you can provide them that kind of that habitat structure and get those species appropriate behavior in something like a 40-gallon breeder tank, which is pretty awesome as far as I'm concerned. The other thing that's really cool about plains hognose snakes is we're always taught hognose snakes eat toads. Like that's everybody knows that. Eastern hogs, southern hogs, absolutely. They eat a tremendous amount of amphibians. It's over 80, 90% of their diet. Wow. But what's been a lot of fun writing the book and working with the animals in the field is that plains hognose snakes actually have a much more cosmopolitan diet than Easterns, which is why they make better captives. And I used to think, feeding them rodents all the time was bad because we're not getting amphibians in there. And there's populations where there isn't a documentation of them eating a toad. Doesn't mean they didn't. It just means the scientists didn't see it. And in those populations, like the population we're studying out in Iowa, their ecology is so fascinating to me. They are literally doing what the golden lanceheads do in the island off of South America, where the migratory birds come in and there's like a month-long period of time and they just got to get all the calories they're going to get in that period of time. In Iowa, it's not birds, it's turtles. These things are feasting on turtle eggs.
Wow.
And they're perfect for getting turtle eggs because they've got the snout that enables them to dig. They're good at digging. And if you think about it, it's an amazing relationship because when a snake eats prey, it's got to basically dedicate itself to eating and it's exposed to predation. And we're talking about 18-inch to 30-inch long snakes. Like every raptor in the land is going to eat that when they get a chance to. And what the hogs are able to do is they're able to chemosense where the turtles laid their eggs. And then they dig down into the nest and they actually go into the egg chamber. And it's like, literally, it's like us going to Golden Corral and laying on the buffet and eating all the food. Like we don't have a table. They're in the buffet. And then
it's a fantasy of mine.
There you go. Yes. Get your mouth open under the chocolate fountain. But they do that. And then they usually eat somewhere between 3 to 6 eggs. And then they'll emerge out of the nest and they'll do it again the next day. And then they'll do it again the next day. And we are having a really hard time finding anything that the adult hogs eat at our study site other than these turtle eggs. And so I started reading because I was like, wow, this is really interesting. And this has been documented like multiple times. It's been documented in Nebraska. It's been documented in Illinois. There was one place in Nebraska where 100% of the nests were predated by hognose snakes.
Wow.
So I've never heard anybody that keeps hognose snake talk about this. So we have aspects of ecology like that we can pull into their care. So what I started doing is I breed snakes. I get a lot of slugs. Not a lot of slugs, but if I get a clutch of 12, there's like 2 or 3. And I was like, well, let's just see if they'll eat these. They eat them like gumdrops. So it's led me to be a little bit better keeper. The other thing that they eat are race runners, which I don't know if you've ever tried to catch a race runner, Aspidosolus. These things are like grease lightning.
Yeah.
I swear to God, they all do a little bump of something in the morning to start their day. Like when
coffee.
Yes, coffee. Exactly.
They have coffee.
They have coffee. Lots of coffee. Because you can't catch them. And then
Colombian coffee.
Yeah, the good stuff. But our hognose, like the juveniles eat them. Like, what the hell? And they have rear fangs. Doesn't really do much to a person, though it can create a lesion. So they are, I do not think it is, a lot of alpha males will be like, they're not venomous. They're venomous. It's okay. Move on with your life. They've got a Duvernois gland. It creates peptides that makes you venomous. And I've seen the venom work. I've watched them bite a race runner on some videos from my students, and the race runner like wiggles, and then it just doesn't wiggle. So it's so they're knocking their prey out, and then they eat these freaking lizards that weigh as much as they do. It's like me eating 260 pounds of food in 15 minutes. Which
also
is
a fantasy
crazy.
Of mine.
Yes. So, but you have all this, and people don't like. I don't see people incorporating this into their care. I would love to see a subculture with the hognose snakes of people like keeping them in a naturalistic setup that promotes all of these cool behaviors. Their interactions with grass. If you listen to my podcast, one of the running jokes is that I've fallen in love with dirt, with hognose snakes. Like I go to all these places where the westerns are, and we oftentimes fly. I'll fly there. The students drive there, and I'm like, well, we're going to go to Lowe's and buy another shovel and get more buckets, and 20 gallons of dirt goes back to the university for me to look at.
Tell me about this dirt. I'm assuming it's not aspen.
It's not aspen. It's sand, but it's a sand to sandy loam. So it's got a little bit of clay, a little bit of silt in it, but oftentimes it's just freaking sand. And what happens is you get a root mat in the sand from grasses, which kind of consolidates the sand, and that gives it a little bit more structure. And then you put the hog in there under those conditions. They create their tunnels in the sand. The tunnels maintain themselves. Now you've got grasses growing, and their interactions with grass, with like things like cryptic basking and how they utilize different species of grass, that is also fascinating to me. So, I've done things where I've gotten exos that were equivalent to a 40-gallon breeder. I don't know the exact dimensions, but the big ones. Also gotten them from ZooMed and thrown in the soil we brought home from Colorado. And I just threw the hogs in there, and that didn't work. Like the sand was just falling down. And so then I realized it's the roots, the grass roots, the secret. So then I just got on Amazon and bought wheatgrass, the stuff that people grow in their kitchen for, they put it in a blender and drink it up. And so I just created a monoculture wheatgrass in there to add some structure to that first 2-3 inches of substrate, and threw the hogs back in it. And sure enough, they started digging, and I got all these crazy, awesome behaviors that I was seeing in the field. So like, there's a lot left to do with hognose snakes and their care. I just hope people don't judge them because they're starting to overwhelm the market. Clint does our market update every 2 weeks, and hognose snakes are now the largest part of the Colubrid Colubroid market. And so a lot of people are looking at the paint jobs, and that's fine, but a lot of mine are normals because I just like the snake. Like I don't. Yeah. Now I have morphs. Don't get me wrong. There are some morphs that are pretty cool. But when it comes to naturalistic keeping, we're just now scratching the surface. UVB, everybody's favorite topic, not controversial at all. These things live outside, and they live in habitats where their trees are very limited, where most of them are. But there's oftentimes a very well established shrub layer present. And every single time I caught a wild hognose snake, and I have my students doing this out in Iowa, we're walking around with solarimeters, and we take a UVB reading. And what is really interesting to me, it could be, it may not, I'm not necessarily saying they're active because of the UVB, but we're getting UVB ratings on the Ferguson scale of like 4, 6, 7, 8, like way up there. And they're out and about doing their thing. We also get them down, 2 to 3, but on average, it's like 4, 4.5. A couple people that listen to CCR have reached out to me, and they are doing a lot of this naturalistic keeping. And so they started incorporating UVB into their enclosures. And I told them, like, if you can, put it at like a far end of the enclosure and just see if they go to that end, and then move the light periodically. And they're doing that. And sure enough, when they move the light, after about a day and a half to 2 days, the hognose snake's coming out where the UVB light is. So,
wow.
Do they need it? That's the part of this that is nebulous. Do they use it? They appear to be using it. And we've done.
So you're telling me that they evolved for millions of years under sunlight, and now they actually utilize this sunlight or UV in captivity? That's insane to me.
Yes.
Wow.
So it's super cool stuff. But that's what I like about hognose snakes. They're also a great snake if you want to learn how to breed snakes. Hogs are pretty straightforward. And we make a lot of them every year at the school because I never know if we're going to do a project or not. So we'll like keep about 40 to 60 of them around. And then if we have a thesis pop up or something like that, boom, we're in it to win it. And they're the snake I teach my students how to breed snakes with, because we brumate them. So we get them down to like 50, but I've also had them breed at 60 before and produce eggs. So, yeah.
Is that so? Is it necessary to brumate them in captivity, no matter what?
I have a tendency to lean, and this is solid colubrid keeper dogma. I think it helps them. I can't validate in my head an animal that evolved to be completely physiologically inactive for 3 to 4 months or up to 8 months in the case of Alberta. And then you deny it that. I just don't see how that's not going to make them burn out quicker. And there's a lot of evidence that points towards that happening. There's some evidence that points towards it not happening. But we have a tendency, our animals tend to do better if we brumate them. Another thing that's really cool is oftentimes I'll have an animal or one of the snakes in our collection up at school, because we have a lot of them up at school, and it'll be a bad feeder one year. And we'll brumate it. It comes out of brumation. It's like a completely different snake. It's eating every time. And we have that happen. But I think that the brumating helps them. I don't think it hurts them. And I've gotten mine very low. I have a corner of my garage where I brumate stuff, and we keep having these insane winters where normally it would get like, we would have maybe 10 days. This is going to sound awful to you being in Florida, where it gets down to like 20 the daytime high. Yeah. We've had like 10 days where it didn't get above -5 now. Man. And that corner of my garage, I have govies all over it. And I forgot that I had put a govie up. And I kept thinking, why is the one that's lower a higher temperature than the one that's up high? And then I realized, oh crap, you've been reading this wrong for 2 weeks. And sure enough, I'm pretty positive that corner got to like 35, 34, 33 degrees. Jeez. When I opened up the tub, there was a thin layer of ice on the water. And, it didn't move much, but the little hog like turned his head like, could we maybe fix this? And in the wild, they've been tempted that when people have dug them up from hibernation. So they're able to handle a lot.
I did the same thing to a diamond python, if you feel any better.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I think that I think snakes are especially temperate snakes, they are way more resilient than we want to give them credit. So I have no problem getting my animals down to like 45. I oftentimes get mine down to 40 for like the upper 30s for about a week. And every time I have a nice winter that isn't doing this all winter and it's just cold with real cold in the middle there, that's when I have the best result in my breeding. Like this year's been a bit of a crapshoot because we had a polar vortex where I'm at, and then it got up to 70 in February, and then it dropped back down to a polar vortex in March, and then it got warm. Then April was super cold. I mean, it was just completely backwards than what we needed.
Could you imagine how much worse it would be if global warming was real?
Well, it is real. So, and that's all I'm going to say about that. So,
I'm
climate
kidding.
change is real.
I'm kidding.
So,
I'm kidding.
yeah,
Yes. Yeah. That's right. We don't call it global warming anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So walk me through, so you've got your Westerns. How Southern do the Westerns go? And are there certain Westerns that don't experience abrumation or no?
Pretty much all of them live where it gets cold. There's a little bit of a debate right now. Within the plains hognose snake complex, we have the Western hognose snake and we have the desert hognose snake, Heterodon kennerlii. And there's a lot of people that don't think that, or sorry, not desert, Mexican hognose snake. I got my words backwards there. There's a lot of people that think Mexicans aren't a thing, that they're just an extension of the plains, which has a Latin name Nassicus. They may be a thing, they may not be a thing. There's some work that's been done that hasn't been published, so I'm not allowed to talk about it, which is really annoying because I'd love to have it in the book I'm writing, but I can't. So anyway, but those southern Mexican hog populations, they get all the way down to Mexico, and they can creep up the mountains a little bit. So they're getting, they have winters, but it's probably what would equilibrate to a moderate winter, like South Carolina type winters, maybe not where you're at in Florida. Now the ones that are up north, they have like hellaciously awful winters, but those animals don't know if they're brumating or not. I know there are plenty of hognose breeders that basically do the whole, we talk about how you have to have like one of 3 or 4 triggers. And so they'll do the food cycling, they'll do the light cycling, and then they'll just turn off all the supplemental heat in their room and just let it get cold with whatever winter's going to provide. And then they'll bring that back up, and then they have plenty of production. So.
Now, what's the difference? Okay, so we have hognose snakes in Florida, right? Those are southern hogs. Okay, there's
Easterns
2
and southerns.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but you don't think that they're well suited for captivity?
No.
Why?
There's a couple issues with both of them. The eastern hognose snake, Heterodon platyrhinos, has this insane distribution, but it is a toad obligate. They will occasionally eat frogs. They will occasionally eat other things. There's a large list of one-off things people have seen an eastern hognose snake eat, but then you try to feed it that again and it doesn't do it. And so when you bring them into human care, what you have to do with an eastern is you are going to almost invariably have to use a lot of toads and toad scent on pinkies to get it to eat pinkies. And then you have to do the wean it off of the toad scent on the pinkies to the point it's eating mice. And I am not great at that. There are a handful of people that are really freaking good at that. The problem is, though, feeding them an all mouse diet, I don't know how much that's going to impact their lifespan, because the nutritional components that make up a mouse are as different from a toad as you can get. One's a freaking mammal, one's an amphibian, one has a lot of fat, one doesn't have a lot of fat. Like, there's just all kinds of differences.
Yeah.
So the people that do keep easterns, the other problem with easterns is what I already talked about, is there's just a lot of places you can't keep them because they're a native species and they have native species rules. So,
and that could potentially happen in Florida.
Yes.
I'm assuming.
Yeah, I don't know Florida's regs off the top of my head, but there's that. The southern hognose snakes, and I'm a conservation biologist as well, they have experienced an enormous range reduction. Fire ants are not good for them at all, and they are more of a habitat specialist than the easterns. And so they have a tendency to live in sandhill habitats. Interestingly, there's a certain state in a secondary forest when a forest is coming back where it kind of gets to a stage where it's kind of like a sandhill forest. In those anthropogenic successionary forests, you'll get southern hogs. But due to the habitat destruction, the fire ants taking out the babies in the nests, and just development everywhere where they live, they're being petitioned like right now for federal listing. And Lord knows if they'll get it or not. But if they do get it, then it's going to be the same issues you have with eastern indigos and black pine snakes and Louisiana pine snakes, where you can do within state, you can sell them. But other than that, it's going to be a gift. And maybe an unpopular opinion, I kind of like it when the animals get to a point where it's more about the animal and less about making money, and you just get gifted animals, because then I feel like we're doing this for the right reason. I have Southern hogs here. I actually found the Southerns to be way easier to keep than the Easterns. And the Southerns are very closely related to the Westerns. So they look more like a Western hog than an Eastern hog, which is kind of interesting too.
They kind of look like a pygmy rattler, right?
Yeah. There's an idea that they may have evolved a form of mimicry to mimic pygmy rattlesnakes.
Mm. Mm-hmm. And that the way that would come about would be that they are, if a clutch is born and it kind of looks like a pygmy, something might leave it alone, and then it's just more likely to survive and just carry on those genes and look
that's
more
in a nutshell.
Okay.
And as a biologist, I look at that and sometimes I'm like, it could just be a coincidence. And then other times I'll look at that and I'm like, well, that sure does look like a freaking pygmy rattlesnake.
But you got to figure the things that predate on these animals probably, it's like, hey, mm-hmm. my pal Steve, he tried to eat a pygmy once and died, so we don't go near those guys.
Yep. The other way to look at this, which I look at these kind of mimicry rings a lot, is it could also be, in the case of the pygmy and the Southern, and I'm not saying I don't think it's mimicry. It could be mimicry. I'm just devil's advocate because that's what we do when we're scientists. The color pattern of a pygmy rattlesnake makes it cryptic for where it lives. Mm. And if that makes the pygmy rattlesnake cryptic, it's going to make the Southern hog cryptic. And that might be why they look the same, is just because they basically are snakes that are very rarely up off the ground, that interact with the forest floor a lot. And they need that pattern that breaks up their outline. And that's exactly what it does. But yeah, so the Southern hogs, though, that could be getting messy soon. Yeah. And that's another reason why it might be worth leaving them be. And I'm certainly not promoting. Sometimes when it's like imminent that they're about to get listing in herpetoculture, we have a sudden push, like we've got to go and get more. So I think we should just leave all the Simus alone. Yeah. just leave them where they're at. There's actually a rather large captive population of them in Europe. There's some guys here and ladies here in the United States that already have multiple localities, multiple lines going. Like, we're good. We just need to leave those things where they're at because they are not doing well. That's just my opinion.
So your recommendation for my son, myself, would be a Western.
A Western.
And then brumate, put it in a tub, stick it out on the back patio, let it freeze out over the winter with the diamonds.
Yeah.
And then bring it back in.
Yeah. And there's people listening to this that are probably yelling at their screen. You don't have to do that. You don't have to do that. But you could do that. I mean, that's what I would do if it was me.
If you don't think I should do that, comment below. So now, all right. So walk me through the brumation process. When do you cut off food? I'm assuming you cut off the food, keep them sort of warm, let them clear their digestive system, and then put them down for their brumation. How much? What's that duration of time?
Sure, I love brumating snakes. And it's not that I love the break. I love the science and the biology and the physiology. I just think this is so freaking interesting. So I brumate just because I think the process is beneficial for the animals And I really like what's going on if you know a little bit about their physiology and all that jazz.
Yeah.
I used to do, there's like this classic recipe in Colubrid herpetoculture, which is, it's based off holidays. So on Halloween, you're done feeding. And then basically you clean them out until Thanksgiving. And then around Thanksgiving is when you put things down for brumation. And then they're brumating until Valentine's Day. And then you bring them up from brumation, give them like a week to 10 days to get operating, feed them a small prey item to get their guts going, and then, put them together for breeding is what we normally do. And I did that religiously. But then I ran into problems. And the problem was it was not getting cold. It was like the second year I did it, I was following the classic recipe, and I put things in the corner of the garage. And my gobies were like, the lowest it got was 61. And so that's detrimental for some snakes. Some snakes, that's cold enough. Like, that's going to shut them down. Other more northerly snakes, that's like warm. So they're still metabolizing. Everything's going. So what I've started to do is I have multiple weather apps. That's mostly for the field work I do. But it comes in handy breeding snakes. So I just kind of look at, what's the weather going to be in 2 weeks? What's the weather going to be in 2? And when I finally see it's going to dip, if it's before Thanksgiving, I'll put them, I'll start this a little sooner. If it's after Thanksgiving, if it looks like it's going to be after Thanksgiving, I'll let them go a little bit further into November. So I don't do a hard, fast thing anymore, just because the damn weather's so out of whack that I don't know. Because I like I said, that year that I just followed the recipe, things were not the greatest because they were metabolizing their fat stores, and I was like, ugh. So as long as I can guarantee that they're in the low 60s, and I mean like 60 to 55, like that 5-degree window, and I can get them to that temperature, that's when they brumate. A lot of people will throw them in the fridge.
What?
Yep. For python people, you're like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Colubrid people I guarantee you there are colubrid keepers right now that have gray bands and various king snakes, bamboo rat snakes, and a little deli thing in the refrigerator.
I wonder if I could get my wife on board with that.
There you go. Just what she doesn't know won't hurt her.
This is true too.
So.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of how I would label that. Something she would never touch. Kimchi. I just put kimchi on there, and she'll never go near it.
Yeah, wine coolers. A lot of people will buy those little mini fridge wine coolers that they are designed to hold things at like 48 to 55. They're perfect. But yeah, no, that's pretty much it. And then once they go down 6-ish, 10 weeks, somewhere in there, they're down. And another thing, when you brumate, and there's been this wasn't done for herpetoculture. This was for understanding hormones. There was some work done with garter snakes that showed it's not just the brumating that's important. They have to be in complete darkness. Like, if the darkness doesn't hit their retina, another pathway in their brain doesn't get activated to tell them it's winter.
Oh, wow.
And so they have to have the darkness plus the cold is what caused the hormone cascades that led to ovulation. So
wow.
I did a deep dive on Amazon for about an hour and a half, 2 hours one night, trying to find cheap Rubbermaid totes that were all black. And I found them. And the year before, I was just using random totes I had in the garage. And I had an okay year. I thought I had a great year. Then when I took it super serious and dialed everything in, the next year, I was not prepared for the number of eggs that I got.
Wow.
So it was that's when I was convinced.
And you attribute that to those those blacked out bins?
I think it's a combination of the darkness, the food cycling in the fall, getting them cold. All the triggers were pulled, and it was pretty awesome.
Dude, so a mini fridge would be perfect.
Yep.
Just a mini fridge designated. I'm thinking now, if we get a pair of Hognose, I'm going to have to name them Kim and Chi. Put them in a container, label it kimchi, stick it away, total darkness. Now, what about cohabbing? How do they do with cohabbing? Do they eat each other?
They do fairly well with cohabbing, but they will occasionally eat each other.
Well, sometimes they eat themselves, right?
Yes. They also eat their eggs, which is the most annoying thing in the world. I had one the first time I bred hogs was 2020 when we had, we were all locked in our houses. And I kept waiting for this female to drop her eggs because she was the last one. And I checked her at like 10 in the morning and she hadn't dropped yet. And then I checked her at 12:30 and she was empty. And I looked at her and was like, where are the eggs? Because the last third of her body was that deflated piece. The top 2/3 of her body was bigger. And I realized that she had eaten them. And I just held her upside down and wiggled and she puked them all up. And then I threw them in an egg box and they all hatched. So,
no way.
Yeah. I was like,
that's not like from a evolutionary standpoint. That's not a good move.
Yeah. So here's what I think. Again, Pekingese versus a timber wolf. In nature, they're probably laying their eggs and getting on with their day. But we have done so much selective breeding with hognose snakes that there are absolutely inbreeding depressions with some morphs, like albinos and anything that is associated with albinos oftentimes have a reduced skull and these giant bug eyes. There's a couple morphs now that have what I think it's the bumblebee balls, the neuro disorders. That's starting to show up. There's a lot of hognose people. They're like, no, it's not neuro. And then you look at the damn thing and it's going like this. And I'm like, that's the literal definition of neuro.
It's just dancing.
Yes, it's dancing. Yeah, there you go. So, some of those animals, plus they're out of the wild. Like, they're not wild snakes anymore. And when you get out of the wild and selection's not acting on you anymore, you can get away with being really stupid and passing on things that are stupid. Like in the wild, if you eat your eggs and that's a genetic trait, you just got rid of your line. Like you fixed the problem yourself. So I don't know if that is happening as readily out in the wild. Now, do I think Western hogs find another animal's nest and occasionally eat them? Yes, absolutely. Based off all the egg eating I'm seeing. Anyway.
So
but that's
would a solid feeder source for hognose be quail eggs?
I've not fed them quail eggs. So there's the difference between turtle eggs are hard shelled, but bird eggs are harder. So I haven't gotten to the point yet where I could test it. We have a bunch so we do a lot of spotted turtle conservation at the school, and they will drop infertile eggs. And I have my turtle keepers are just gathering up all the eggs. And we're going to be doing something with feeding hognose snakes turtle eggs because that from the wild, we're seeing in the wild. I want to do something in a controlled setting and just see like they ate the egg here. How long does it take them? They also defecate out the eggshells, which is extremely cool.
And rather than regurg?
Yeah, and they come out in a packet.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That's so interesting.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So that's brumation. Now what? Okay. So what about the world of locality hognose or something that is going to be like represent what you would see out in the wild? I understand that everything is altered once it's taken from the wild and bred in captivity, but I don't want to get a morph hognose. No hate on morph hognoses. I think they're great. I think they're great for the pet industry. They're adorable. But I want sort of a natural representation. Do you have something like that? Do you have somebody that you could steer me towards?
I'm horrible with hognose people names, so I'm sorry, Hognose World. Now, the guy that I'm doing the book with, John Rice, he's Fathom Hogs. He's awesome. He definitely has some of the animals we're talking about, and of course, Jeff Galewood, who is like one of the main hognose people. He will have some locality stuff. In my experience, there's more like definitive localities with the Mexican hognose snakes than there are with the Western hognose snakes. But Mexican hogs can be at times problematic, and I would not recommend them because they will go off food and they will get finicky and they can be. I have personally hated on my Mexican hogs for months on end. Like I had one where it would do the thing where it would start to look like, yeah, you're definitely going to die. Like we've not eaten for a month and a half. This is bad. And then it would eat for like 3 straight months. And then it wouldn't eat for 3 months. And then it would eat for 3. So no, I can't handle that. But with them, there's, Alpine, Texas, the Davis Mountains. There's Davis Mountain lines for the Mexican hogs. There's some Arizona localities for the Mexican hogs that exist. With the Westerns, it's more about there's certain phenotypes that are allied with a place. And what's cool, like a lot of people don't realize it, is these phenotypes are directly relevant to the soil that they live on. So as you get into Oklahoma and into Texas, you get a lot of iron in the soil, in the sand. And so there's a lot of redder pigmented animals that you find down in that part of the world, in central Texas and in Oklahoma. And I really like those. But I've not seen, in my experience, someone advertising like Texas red or something like that.
Yeah.
It's just the red pigments tend to come from there. Another one that's kind of well known in the hognose world is it's a morph, but it's a natural occurring morph. It's something called a sable. So sables are a form of melanism. So these are very dark animals. And they came out of Montana. So they're also from that more northern part of the Plains hognose range. So they get a little bigger and they're a little bit more robust. And people either really like that look or don't. I think they're cool looking. I actually had one I raised, but she's the only hognose I've had die from egg binding, and she passed this past season. So that sucked.
Sorry.
And then in the middle part of their range, they're all usually just what we refer to as normal. And I love the normal hog look. And it's just basically they're going to have circles, spheres, things like that on their backs that are going to be a chestnut brown to a mahogany brown. And then the background of that, it can range from tan to a yellow tan to a yellow orange tan. And those are all kind of natural occurring phenotypes. But like I said, I haven't ran into many people that are advertising as locality. But we have lots of normals at the school right now. And most of the morphs came from normals. So you just basically breed the ones from Texas. You get a more red one, and then another more red one from this clutch, breed them together, and boom. Now we get high red animals, that kind of thing.
So the normals that you have, are they like het for anything, or were they collected? Like, when were they collected? Like I don't even know like the history of hognose snakes in the hobby. Like, are the ones you have like F20, but they're just normal?
What's really funny about the ones that I have is there was a professor at a school in Texas who had a hognose snake colony for doing research on their eggs and reproductive biology. Like he keeps snakes, but he wasn't into hognose snakes because he liked them as a captive animal. He liked them because they were a model. They were like his white mouse, if you will. And then he retired, and the university was like, you got to find a home for all these snakes. We don't want these snakes. And so he called me and was like, do you want my hognose colony? And I was like, yes, please. And so I got all these normals. And I was so excited because one of the things that's really hard to find is a normal hognose snake. It's real easy to find morphs and hets, but pure normals, that's actually kind of a white whale. And so I was excited because I've got this line, and I asked him, where did you get them from? And he's like, oh, I got them from a breeder, and the breeder caught the adults like 10 years ago. And I was like, all right, perfect. That's what I wanted. And the first time we bred them, we got freaking albinos, we got azanthics, we got arctics, we got condas. I was like, bullshit. Like, either that or wherever the hell they got their wild stock, every morph of hognose lives there. So I think it's like a white whale is just getting a pure normal hognose snake, like that or plains hognose snake. So
wow.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with you, can you collect plains hognose snakes or no?
You can, but most of their distribution they're protected.
Okay.
But there's just that is such a bad idea at this point in the game, because those wild animals, they're imprinted to feed on things that we do not have readily available. I don't know very many people who have a ready supply of freaking turtle eggs and race runners. That and we've done such a good job in private herpetoculture of creating lines of Nasicus that will eat pinkies. That is probably best to just get hets and say they're normals and go from there, like I did, because I don't think it's wise at all to go to the wild and pluck any of these guys out. We don't need to do that anymore. We got plenty of diversity, and even like some people, fresh blood. If you take Morph A, Morph B, they're not related, which you may not know from my experience. That could be the case. We can do outcrosses. We can keep this thing genetically diverse. I just don't think we need to be getting them for the wild. Plus, wild hogs are loaded with parasites. They have a fluke that is basically in every frog. And at some point in their diet, our animals in Iowa have eaten frogs. And we look for flukes. They come up out of their lungs and they'll hang out in their mouth. And we recapture our animals all the time, which is one of the cool things about our study site. And so we have a fluke check. And if we catch an animal 3 times, it's almost a given. One of those fluke checks, it's going to have them. So you're also bringing pathogens into your collection. And one unfortunate aspect of hognose snakes is there are some pathogens that will wipe them out very quickly. They are extremely susceptible to crypto. And what's interesting is most snakes get hit really hard by Cryptosporidium serpentis, and hognose snakes get hit real hard by Cryptosporidium verinei. And it's awful when they get that, and because they just wither away and die. And so you run the risk of bringing in something like that if you're getting them from the wild. So I don't really support wild caught Westerns at all at this point in the game. It just doesn't make sense.
Is it a zoonotic disease that can go from animals to humans? Is that right? Mm-hmm. So are those cryptos, those 2 cryptos, are those zoonotic? Can we contract those?
We probably can't because we're warm-blooded. That may not be why, but cryptos we're just now starting to learn a lot about Cryptosporidium, besides the ones that impact people. And there does seem to be not that much evidence that the mammal cryptos get herps and the herp cryptos can get into mammals. So, but we have had, we have multiple colonies of these things at the university, and it's just par for the course when we're a teaching institution. So we have lots of people interacting with our reptiles. Yeah. It's a reptile, in some regards, part of our collection is a reptile keeper's nightmare, because it is open to lots of people who are learning. And we have had crypto brought in to one of our hog colonies before, and it was a hog colony at the beginning of the month, and by the end of the month, everyone was dead. So it goes it's almost like a self-correcting problem at times, because it just wiped out everything. So you got to be real careful, and with bringing in the wild stock, we've done that. We've established them. I just don't think we need to do that
Now,
anymore.
didn't recently on CCR, didn't you talk about the amount of crypto? It was a fantastic segment. Like captive versus wild, or how many specimens out in the wild that were tested were crypto positive, and it was a very, very surprisingly small number for most animals.
Yeah. Crypto is almost certainly an us problem. We bring in snakes, we keep them in extremely high density in a limited amount of space. So this office I'm sitting in, I don't count. So I don't know where we are. But we're probably at about 50 snakes in here. There's probably nowhere on earth or maybe there is, outside of a hibernacular breeding situation, but just snakes on the landscape, that density is not normal. And so you add to the mix things like phorid flies, fruit flies, people going from cage to cage to cage to cage to cage. Like, we just have set up a dynamic that is perfect for this disease to get into a collection, set up shop, and be there. And it's not surprising to me that happens in human care. And then you go out to the wild where they have space and they're not, slithering over their poop all the time, and they can go to a different water body. Like, that result didn't shock me that much, but at the same time, it was nice to see it validated, if that makes sense.
When you were doing that segment and talking about all that, it really kind of had me go down this sort of, I don't know if you'd want to say philosophical rabbit hole, but I'm just sitting there thinking, like, are we keeping, and not to like throw shade at anybody, but are we just keeping too many snakes in too small of an area and too small of enclosures?
Probably. I don't have a hard time saying, I mean, guilty as charged. You can see the racks behind me. Those are the grow outs,
Yeah.
I think that if they had the ability to get away, it's just, now it's ironic that we spent the first half hour saying I can't do math, but it's just mathematical. If you decrease the total amount of area that you live in, you have a higher likelihood of contracting a pathogen if a vector shows up in that limited area. So I have no problem, seeing that as why we have this happen. The other thing is with like colubrids, I think colubrids lend themselves and colubroids lend themselves to this way more than pythons and boas because of the fact they crap all the time and the spores are in the poo. So if you, like, I've got boas in here, and if they defecate like once a month, maybe.
Isn't it awesome?
It's freaking great. The others are crapping twice a damn day. Sometimes it feels like. So like, I wake up before I go to work. I just walk around, popping tubs, especially on grow outs, that, making sure I can get the poop out. And then I do it once in the evening. Now it means I have eyes on my snakes all the time. It's problematic when I leave on a trip, which I do often. Then the collection's in the hands of my 17-year-old son, who, thank God, he cares about this stuff. But no, I think if we increase the space, increase the ventilation, one thing that's helped me a lot is, and here again, this is just a fact, not pooing on racks. I obviously have racks. There's something about just the nature of a rack that when they defecate, the feces can't dry out.
Yeah.
And when it stays moist, the likelihood of the spores moving and everything, I think is elevated a bit. I keep a lot of things in enclosures for the simple fact that when they defecate, it dries. And so you're lowering that possibility that something from the fecal mass is going to be transported from one animal to another. And I also think it just helps with airflow.
Yeah, I mean, we see that a lot in nature, right? Like when predators are removed and the prey overpopulates, all of a sudden disease shows up and does its thing.
It's a regulating factor. I may teach that in my eco classes. Another thing that's interesting. We did a study. We never published it. I wish we would have. But we took very large enclosures. They were either 6 or 8 footers. I can't remember. They were PVC enclosures from animal plastics. And we had our maintenance people build a divider in the middle. And we spent so much time messing with it so the thermal gradient between the two sides was as close to the same as we could possibly get it. So that we were trying to eliminate the variable of snakes choosing where they were based off of temperature. And when we finally got those things dialed in, we had an enriched side of the enclosure with mulch and sticks and a hide box. And then we had what we called sterile side of the enclosure, which was newspaper, hide box, water bowl. Both of them had water bowls. And we used water cobras, we used corn snakes, and we used ball pythons. And what was really interesting to me is, and it stuck with me since we did that study, and that was in like 2017, 2018. The corn snakes and the water cobras, it was kind of an equal split. Most of the time, like I think it was 60% of them chose enriched, 40% of them chose sterile. So like, that kind of let me know, okay, there are individuals that like it better with this minimalistic approach, which was kind of interesting to me. Like it
That's very interesting.
Too strong a word, but anyway, preferred.
Yeah.
But what was interesting is they would choose a side, but when they had to go to the bathroom and crap, they always went to the other side. And it did, like if they were on the sterile side, they went to the enriched side and went to the bathroom. They were on the enriched side, they went to the sterile side and went to the bathroom. And it really kind of made me realize, like, they may actually be trying to get away from their crap, which shouldn't really be a revolutionary idea. I don't crap in my bed for fun. That's not something I've ever done or ever want to do. But it just kind of made me think, like, they probably want to get away from this. And that might be why they crap in their water bowls all the time, because in nature, if you crap in the creek or the lake or the pond or the whatever, your scent is going downriver so the predator can't find you. So it just kind of made me think a lot about the fact that these animals are a bit more complex than they are, and they might want to be clean. Which, again, I don't understand why we have to do science to come up with that assumption or prove that assumption, but there you go.
But and I mean that was like a happy byproduct, right? Like you had no idea that you were going to make that observation, right? You were probably just thinking like, oh, we're going to figure out if they like enriched or not enriched. And then come to find out both of them are like, hey, I gotta go, and I'm going to go as far away as I can from where I like to be to do that. Interesting.
No. And it's so like when I put animals into a rack tub, that's the kind of thing I'm thinking of. Like they can't get away from this. Yeah. Whereas if they're in a vivarium, you give them a vertical hide. We had one snake that would use its vertical hides when it went to the bathroom on the cage floor. And then we would clean it out. And then after 2-3 days, it would drop down and start using the enclosure again. Like, so stuff like that.
My indigo, my female Texas indigo, which I want to talk to you about that. I was colubrid less prior to our last conversation. And then our conversation shoved me into the world of colubrids. And I believe you got some boas as well.
I sure did.
After we talked. So I want to talk about that. But I just went to go clean her quarantine tub and I open it up. And of course, she pooped on the paper and made it into a ball and stuck it in the corner. And she was up on top of her hide, which she never, ever, ever does. She's always in her hide or hiding somewhere. But she disliked the waste in there so much that she went up on top of the hide and waited it out there. Even my dog, we're on a half acre. When I let my dog out, he runs all the way to the edge of our property, and that's where he does his business, So it's, that's such, it's like an obvious, but an interesting observation.
Yeah, no. I've even thought about trying to just write up the pooping part. But I don't know how to frame that and get it. It would have one hell of a title. That's all I know. So
how about "Don't Shit Where You Eat"?
There you go. Yep, that works. Yeah.
Oh man. So I got indigos. What kind of boas did you get? What did you get?
What do you think I got?
Argentines.
I got Argentines.
I love you.
Yeah. Well, I love them. I was on the fence for Argentines for a very long time. So my order of like favorite snakes, obviously colubrid, colubroids, and then it's boas. Like,
sure.
But it's not like colubrids are here, boas are here. They're like smashed up against each other.
That's awesome.
And I'm pretty sure when I recorded, I had I can't say it, Boa Sigma. Yeah. I have leopards and I have Terra Humana, whatever that locality is.
Oh, Terra Humera.
Yes.
Boy, you really messed me up with that first pronunciation.
Yeah, I can't say it.
Like, Tara Humara.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There we go. Okay.
And because I had Imperador when I was in college. I went on a quest to get a pair of it. It was everything you're not supposed to do. It was one of those. I wanted to skip growing it up and just buy adults. And I went to the All Ohio Reptile Show, and I got a male like right off the rip that was like 5.5, 6 feet long. And then I went the next month, got a female. It was a male. Took it back the following month, got a female. It was a male. I did that 6 months in a row and was like, I'm done. So like on my bucket list is I've got to breed boas at least once in my life. And I had I call them Boa Sigma because I can't say that damn name. So anyway, and then the Occidentalis, they live in Bolivia and Paraguay and Argentina, where all the false water cobras are, and the false musaranas are, and the tricolor hognose, like the things I wrote the book about. Like I just kept bumping into Occidentalis, and I wanted those badly when I was in college. And then I was like, wait a minute, I'm an adult and I have adult money now. I can actually get them. And then you kept talking about them. So yeah, I have a male and I have a female. And they're both, I'm looking at them right now. They're somewhere around like 3.5 feet, I think. And I think they're 26. They're either 24s or late 23s.
Okay.
So, and I don't want them to be huge, but I want them to be impressive. They're going to be my big snakes. But then that's the fun part of the story. I also have this horrible relationship with yellow anacondas. Because I love water snakes, and anacondas are like the ultimate aquatic, freshwater aquatic snake. And when I was in college, I got yellows, and they just would bite me all the time. So much blood has left my body as a result of yellow anacondas. And I got the freaking Argentines and was like, if you're going to breed boas, you need to breed yellows. So I got yellows again after I just got
you're
rid of
crazy.
And I have those too. So, and they're wonderful little demons. I love them to death. So, yeah,
I've had them. I can't keep them in Florida anymore. I had one though, back in the day when it was legal to do so. And, they're such striky little bastards.
Yep. They're like the Rhodia that hurt. That's
But I do want to put out there, Tony Dorr does great work with yellows. He has fantastic yellows, very calm, cool, placid yellows, but he puts the work in with them for sure.
Mine didn't come from Tony. So, but the person I got them from, I greatly appreciate them. So I'm just having fun with those. The female's growing like a weed, and the male is just kind of putzing along, being a male snake. He eats when he wants
males
to.
Do. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So, but they're great. And my Argentines do the same thing your female does that you talk about. So, when I'm sitting here at the computer, they're in these vivariums right here. And if I'm moving around, after about 10 or 15 minutes, they'll have their heads at the opening of the hides. And I kind of glance over there. And then after about 10 or 15 minutes, I look and they're like up and just staring at me like dog. I'm like, what the freak? The falsies do that. But these guys do that too. And I love them to death. So
isn't that incredible? It's such a cool behavior.
Yeah.
Mine is actually out right now. Because I sat down, I recorded with Brian Cusco earlier, and she was at the door when I was done recording, like, dude, come on, let me out. Yeah. You're in the room.
Yep.
Yeah, they're so cool. And that was, I know that was something, a topic we covered in the last episode was the just the fact that they're all in the same ecological niche. Yeah. All these really, really cool animals are, in the same area.
Yeah. Right in the Chaco.
Right there in the Chaco. And what a cool area. Like what a diverse, like insane area that they're adapted to.
No, I have to go. I can't, I'm not crapping on Australia. So NPR people, relax. But
cover your ears.
Feel like South America gets anywhere near the love it should.
It doesn't.
From the herping community. The Amazon does. Peru, lots of people go to Peru and do their obligatory Amazon trip. I haven't done that yet. I've had some students do it. I've met lots of people that have done it. But I absolutely have to get to Paraguay. I have to find a false water cobra in the wild. And the fact that you're either going to find Amarylli, short-tail boas, or you're going to find Occidentalis, the Argentines, if you're in that part of the world. I mean, if you don't find one, you find the other. Like in Amarylli, I know it's not recognized anymore, but we recognize it in herpetoculture. Those are on the docket for the next. There's 2 more localities I'm going to get, and I'm done. I want Hog Islands. That's nostalgic for me, and then I want the short tail.
Hell yeah,
just
dude.
Because they're from that part of the world, and I have a disproportionate number of snakes from that part of the world. So,
my theory behind not as many people herping down there is the fact that it is a little bit more turbulent from a government standpoint. It is also it's a little bit more dangerous, a little bit more risky. You definitely need to have some connections there, whereas Australia is very westernized.
Totally.
Yeah,
the language barrier, similar culture, all that jazz. I can't speak any Portuguese or Spanish, so there's a problem.
Yeah.
But there's been a couple. Mike Pinkleton and that crew, they did a Paraguay trip, and then there's a professor I know who did his dissertation in Paraguay, and there's a couple guides that I'm waiting for more people to go on their trips as guinea pigs to determine whether I'm going to use them or not. But I'm trying to get I have to write a crayfish book, and it's the culmination of all my crayfish work. So I really got to do a good job. And I'm fortunate enough being a professor that you can ask for these things called sabbaticals, where you basically get a paycheck, but you get to focus on your research. It helps the school, all that kind of jazz. And
That's
I'm
awesome.
Shooting for a sabbatical in the fall of 27. And I'm pretty sure that is when I will go, because the problem is that ecosystem, the Chaco, that part of the world, it's kind of like herping here in North America, where there's windows of time where your probability of finding the animals is higher. But their spring is our November, December, and I'm teaching. And I'm not going to go down there and spend all that money without having the highest probability of success. So that's another reason why I'm thinking about doing that, is because I have a little bit of, it's weird. I don't have full blown imposter syndrome, but it just felt weird writing that book that I wrote, being a field biologist and writing about ecology for snakes I've never seen in the wild. Like that just it still doesn't sit right. So I have to check that box. And I also told my wife I'm not coming home until I caught a false water cobra. So hopefully that can be done in 10 days. Because if it's not,
oh man, I want to go.
It happens. So.
I want to go with you because I want to see the Argentines so bad. I want to see an Argentine in the wild.
There's a place in Bolivia that seems decent, where I know a guy who went there. He bought a falsie off of me. He went there actually on his honeymoon, and they got an Argentine boa and a false water cobra in the same hour.
Whoa!
Mm-hmm.
And don't they have giant
boa? It was
don't
not
they
a
have
small snake.
They have giant river otters there too,
yes, they
right?
do.
Like all sorts of wild, crazy things.
Multiple types of caiman. There's maned wolves, which are like you took a wolf and gave it stilts because they basically evolved to walk above the grass, and the grass.
Oh, I've seen those. Yeah.
Yeah. Giant anteaters, armadillos that if you hit with your car's totaled. They're like enormous. So yeah, no, there's a bunch of quirky, weird animals. Barron's racers are there too. So
they're venomous, aren't they?
Yes, they are. They're legit. Phylodryas, the genus they're in, is they got some spice to them. So
I'm so happy you have Argentines now.
Yeah, I do. I'm so happy I do too. Thanks for pushing me over the edge.
They're so cool. I have 2.2, and I love them to death. And Nagini's I have a 8x2 by 2.5 tall enclosure that I just got, and I haven't decked it out yet, but she will be moving in there at some point. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, no, that's wicked. I'm not growing mine fast because I know that's a no-no, but I have a tendency to get animals that are stunted or stunt animals. So I'm just like, I want them to reach their potential.
How are you feeding them?
They get a small rat. I alternate small rat, medium rat, small rat, medium rat. And they're pretty much on a like 2.5 week schedule.
That's what I'm doing.
Yeah. And I was worried about the temps in here. Because I've messed around with different lights, and I found an LED light at Walmart of all places that I can get a hot spot of about 85 to 88, depending on how cold it is in this room. And then it drops down to like 72 at the lowest, usually about 73, 74. So I listened to the BOA symposiums. They were excellent.
Thank you.
And I've read Vin Russo's books, both of them, multiple times. So I think I've got them dialed in. They're growing. They're weird. Boas, more than anything, I'll look at them and be like, damn it, you're not growing. What the hell? And then I'll look at them like 2 weeks later and be like, holy crap, you grew like 6 inches. What?
Isn't that wild?
I can't think. It's not a steady growth. Or
no,
it is
not.
A steady growth, and I just can't see it. I don't know. But with the anacondas, I got a male and then 2 females, and I wanted to get a female that was kind of bigger so I wouldn't get stunted out. And I got hosed. I'm 99% certain the snake that showed up was not the snake that was on Morph Market, because the snake that was on Morph Market was every bit of 4.5 to 5 feet long, and this thing's like 3.5 feet long and about as big around as broom handle.
Oh.
So, and I thought, well, learning opportunity. We'll just see if I can get it to grow. And it turns out I can't.
Oh, no.
So I have yet another small yellow anaconda, which, that's fine. She'll get there inevitably. But yeah.
Damn. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I've made all of my young Argentines regurgitate, all of them, at least once, because I fed them too much.
Yeah.
Shame on me, but as soon as that happened, I'm like, all right, yep, can't do this. No matter, I don't, I gotta 2 weeks, every 14 days. That's when they eat. Mm-hmm. Every 14 days.
Yeah.
And that has been my lesson learned. And when I one day, hopefully, knock on wood, have babies, it will be every 2 weeks from the minute they're born. There will never be a more intense regimen of feeding, because it seems like if I do any shorter duration of time, they puke.
Yep. And it's really hard for me being a colubrid guy, because I'm like every 5 days is to once a week is the normal for things that are growing. So I have to, I'll thaw the rats out when I feed the false waters. That's when I add extra rats for the boas. And I have to get, I've thawed out the rats for the boas so many times and had to be like, no, it's not time. Damn it. Put it back. You know what I mean? Or falsies are getting an extra rat this time. Or the indigos are getting extra rats this time. So
what kind of indigos do you have?
I have the same. Well, actually, I have blacktails. I have one unicolor. I have Texas. The Texans. Blacktails were my favorite until I got the Texans, and the Texans are now my favorite.
Hell
I've had
yeah.
Easterns in the past. We have Easterns at school, and we have yellowtails at school. So the only dry market I haven't kept and raised are Mexicans. I've had all of the others.
So why do you feel Texas is the greatest?
So I like burly snakes that would be thugs, and they fill that niche beautifully to me. The Easterns are like the pretty boys of dry market lands. And everybody wants an Eastern, and you got to jump through all the hoops to get them. The other thing that's super cool from a biology point of view is Texas indigos. A lot of they should be called Texas Crebos because they're related to they are the northern extent of the Central American / South American radiation of dry market. And to me, that zoogeography piece makes them even cooler.
Yeah.
and you can actually go out in the wild and find them and not get in massive trouble. So, and Clint and I will be doing that. We have a couple herping trips planned, and that is one of our. We're going to basically do Texas back to back because I've got to get him down to look for Alterna because he has a problem and buys every freaking Alterna he sees. So I was like, we got to at least get you in habitat. We can't guarantee you an Alterna, but we can make it so you can see, drive down Juneau Road and all the localities. And then right after that, it's Brownsville. I have lots of friends that have gone and looked for the Texas Indigos, and it's like, it just feels like if you go and you follow the Texas Indigo rule book and you're there like 5 days, you're going to find one. And I like that. That's my kind of herping. The days of like bragging rights and putting in hundreds of hours and finding one snake. Yeah, I'm a cheap date now. I don't want to do that. I just want to, if I go looking for snakes, I want to find snakes. It's that simple. And it seems like Texas Indigos, there's kind of an equation that works.
So with the Texas, they're pretty. They have to be. I'm assuming that they're fairly cryptic, like the Easterns, to herp them up. Are they use a lot?
But most of my friends that have found them, you either find them undercover or you're just driving around, a couple key locations and you just see them crossing the damn road.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Are they living in like tortoise burrows and things, or like Easterns do?
They use a lot of rodent burrows.
Okay.
So there's a lot of canal, and keep in mind I haven't been there. So if people have been there and I'm saying this wrong, correct me in the comments. But there's a lot of rodent burrows along canals, and they live in a habitat called thorn scrub. So it's kind of like the Florida scrub that you have. Just get rid of the palmettos. Though there can be some palmettos, but not many. And when you have like late fall, early winter, they're just like the Easterns. They're a winter active snake because Brownsville's way down in southern part of the Gulf. And so they just become very active, and the males are out looking for females all the time. So if you're driving around and you're out in habitat, you just bump into them because they're not cryptic. They're trying to find a mate. And that's that's also the kind of herping that I like. I will happily drive down a road and pluck snakes off of it, but I really like walking around in habitat and then, there's a snake. So, I know Michaels from Black Pearl. When I was at Pomona in January, we ate dinner together, and he and his business partner were talking about going down there to find them.
Oh, hell yeah.
That's what they did. So I told, we have to do that. And we're going to. So we'll let you know when we go.
Yeah. Oh, man. Yeah, it's going to be epic, man. Because I've seen an Eastern once in my entire life being in Florida. And that, but the biggest snake I'd ever seen in the wild. Just so impressive, and it was kind of burned into my brain, and I was oscillating between getting black milks and Texas Indigos, and I finally landed on the Texas Indigos, and I'm so happy I did that. And they've been in quarantine for 6 months. They've been all sorts of crypto tested because I made my female regurg by feeding her too much and it was too cold. But they're ready to move into their 5x2 by 1.5 tall enclosures. And once they outgrow those, I plan on designing an enclosure with my cage guy to where they will have a PVC pipe in the bottom of the cage, and they can go down into that and into like a V70 or something equivalent tub underneath. And they're going to be able to go subterranean and go into total darkness, which I'm fucking geeking out about. Like, I can't wait to do that.
Well, I can help you with that because Auburn University, I'm working with Auburn University on building an enclosure for their Eastern Indigo in their museum. And that's exactly what we're doing. They got an 8-foot-long PVC enclosure, and they had more money than I will ever have to build a cage. So, because I was like, well, what's your budget when we were doing the initial consulting? And they threw out a number, and I was like, that you can buy like 10 cages for that amount of money. I was like, and they were like, well, we want it to, and they want to have like the pine flatwoods in the background, like you would see longleaf pine. And then in the corner, we're going to put a 4.5-inch hole that's going to lead to another 4x2x2 below it. That's going to be the gopher tortoise burrow.
That's crazy.
And yeah, I'm.
Wow.
It's really fun when you get people to give you their money to build a cage you always wanted to build.
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, so mine's
we'll figure
not
out how
to
to do this with them, and then I can send you pictures. It's awesome. And they've been fantastic to work with.
Yeah. Mine's not going to be that fancy.
Yeah. No, this is, it's challenged me. Like I have that class, the herpetology class where we build enclosures, and I'm like, teacher has to be the student now. Like,
yeah. Well, yeah. So mine, I plan on having the pipe come up maybe 4 inches. That way, 4 or 5 inches. That way, when it's filled with substrate, the enclosure, it'll be at grade with that. And I just think it's going to be so cool to be able to have them come out and explore. And when they just want to retreat into, like the V70 or whatever, they can just slink into that hole, and now they're gone. They're hidden.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's going to be so neat.
No. And the Texans, I mean, I've kept all of them. The Texans and the blacktails behaviorally remind me of each other a lot. I have a hard time. Like, there's probably one day a week where I would be like, yeah, the blacktails are my favorite. And it's the day I work with them. And then I don't work with them. I work with the Texans are in my office at work. The blacktails are up in one of the buildings, and they're actually going to my other office at work where I have 6-foot enclosures waiting for them. Yeah, I definitely like them. The Texans also have, I don't even know how to explain. There's a weird calming boldness that they have that the others don't. Like the yellowtails that we work with at school, and we've bred them multiple times and raised young and all that. They're kind of neurotic. They do a lot of huffing and puffing and striking, and about 1 out of every 5 strikes, they mean business. The Easterns we have are really cool and chill until they're not. And then they don't ever try to bite or anything. They just spaz out. And we have one that just craps on you. And
yay,
what that's like from a little one. This thing's like a 5.5 foot, 6 foot snake. So that's disgusting. But my Texans, they have a really derpy feeding response. But outside of that, they're just chill. They do a lot of the huffing. I'm sure you've heard them do the crazy, like when you, yeah. They do that, and then it's almost like, it's Zach, and then they chill out. Like,
yeah, I thought mine were broken.
Like, we know this one. It's the big monkey. We're good. Whereas the yellowtails are just like bite. So
yellowtails are so cool, though. There's some that are out there that I see pictures of them, and I'm like, that's a king cobra.
Oh yeah,
that's a king cobra of the Americas.
Yes, my favorite thing about yellowtail cribos is they're the one snake that I've worked with that will do this weird challenge you, and they will back down, but it takes them a while. Like it's more than just a show. Like one of the weirdest, most aggressive snake bites I ever had was from the male of our pair when he was growing up. He was in my office at work. He was about 4.5 foot at the time. Now he's every bit of 7.5. I mean, he's a big snake.
Wow.
But I was holding him, and he had like reared back and did this kind of maybe gape thing. And when he struck at me, I shifted, and he grabbed my shirt, and it was like a freaking dog with a bone. He was doing this like shake thing with my shirt, but he did it for like a minute. Like he would not stop. And then I went to get him off, and he did it again for a minute. I was like, I don't want that to ever be like my skin. That would be really bad. So
I had a black racer do that to me once on my finger. It was wild.
Yeah, no, it hurts.
Like grab and then shake like a Rottweiler. And you're like, wow.
Yeah.
I could hear my skin tearing. It was insane.
Yep. And racers and Drymarkin are related. They're part of that whole whip snake lineage. So doesn't surprise me that the racer did that.
Yeah. Dude, I'm so excited to have indigos and set them up. I got my black phase from Kevin Butts, and I got my red phase from John. And Kevin Butts is absolutely delightful, great guy. John's a great guy as well, very professional. And yeah, man, I'm delighted to have some colubrids.
I'm happy
and
to have
now
colubrids too.
I feel like the Hognose may be upon us at some point here.
Now, one thing I know that you have a fear of poo in absorbing in the mouth. That's a theme of the podcast. The hogs will actually defecate as much as the indigo, just so you know.
Ah, those little bastards.
Yes. If you're feeding heavy, they're pooping heavy. So that's just the only thing that I will tell you is be prepared.
Now, being a hognose snake soil expert, what would you recommend for a substrate? Because I was thinking, as you were talking, I was like, play sand with some peat and put some grass in it, some lighting. So,
I've done two substrates that I like. One doesn't involve soil at all.
Okay.
And it's just so the ratio is either 1 part pine, 1 part shredded aspen, 1 part cypress mulch, but the mulch has to be dry. It can't be wet. If it's wet, it stays wet, and then the substrate stays a little damp, and then you can get like a little fungus moldy thing growing there. I just put it out on my driveway and bake it in the sun, straight out of the bag from Home Depot or Lowe's.
Yeah.
And I make sure it looks dry, feels dry, and then it's perfectly fine. And by taking those 3 different types of wood and those 3 different particle sizes, they kind of over time will lock in a way where when the snakes make the burrows, they stay. They will make burrows in aspen. I just don't like aspen by itself as a bedding for them. When they'll defecate, it turns a weird black color. And it doesn't hold the burrows as well as that mixture does. So that's one thing I do. Another thing that I'll do is the sand you were talking about, the paver sand, the cheap sand.
Yeah.
I'll take that. I'll take play sand and mix those together. And then I'll add something like coco coir or peat or whatever. The coco coir and the peat can get a little bit rough because the Nassicus like their substrate to be mostly dry. And when that crap dries out, it turns into this fine dust.
Yeah.
And when you're cleaning the cage or they're in there breathing, I think they breathe it in. It'll clog their nares, their nose holes will get kind of compacted with that crap. So there's actually a product called excavator sand, I think. I can't remember which company makes it. It's either Exo or...
I think it's Zoom Ed.
Yeah.
I think.
And there's a couple people that have said they've taken the play sand, the just kind of normal contractor sand, and then taken the excavator and mixed that together.
Because it's like clay.
Yeah. And that seems to work really, really well. But those mixtures, but if you do the soil, I do think it's important to get the roots in there to kind of lock it all together. So, and I just, when I did that at school, I planted the wheatgrass, let the wheatgrass grow up. The wheatgrass died and it created a nice thatch layer on top of the substrate.
Yeah.
Which then kept it so there was something between the snakes and the sand that was kind of natural. And then I took some aspen and leaves and things and just sprinkled it. And then they dug their burrows and it was pretty freaking cool. Like,
oh man, that sounds pretty epic. Especially like if you had a nice, like a Exoterra front opening, 40 gallon and you put all that sand in there and everything that has to be really rewarding to watch that and get some plants in there to bind it all together.
Yep. In the book, I'm writing a chapter on naturalistic keeping. And I was trying to think, like, how can I make this so as user-friendly as possible? And sometime near the end of next month, I'm going to go and buy like a 75-gallon aquarium and just document from like the ground up the whole process that I use. Because I've got 3 adult female hogs that I'm yanking out of the colony that I'm going to use as guinea pigs and just chuck them in the cage once it's done. So, but I can keep you posted. So
yeah, please do. It is. I looked it up. It is Zoom Ed that makes that excavator sand. I know. I think I used it in the past with something, but yeah, that seems like it would be really cool. And I'm kind of curious about the whole quail egg thing too. But I'm curious if those shells would just be too harsh.
I know they'll eat bird eggs because, fun fact, we were in Iowa, and one of my grad students was working with one of our collaborators out there. His name's Don. And I looked at Alyssa and was like, what the hell is on you? And it looked like someone had taken the smallest egg on earth and cracked it open and just flicked the yolk and the egg white onto her shirt. And what had happened is this little hognose snake had regurgitated a sparrow egg that it had eaten, and it had vomited it all over freaking Alyssa. And so she's an excellent biologist, because she then said, we got to get a picture of this. So we've documented bird eggs being consumed on Alyssa's shirt. So, and I took the eggshell and put it in a whirl pack and figured out that it was a grasshopper sparrow, which is a very common prairie bird.
Wow. So they are eating bird eggs.
They will eat bird eggs. And there's a couple other records of them eating eggs. The only thing about the quail eggs is they're just a little bit big. That's the finch eggs. I'm 100% certain they would eat finch eggs. Zebra finches, because a lot of times they'll drop infertile eggs if you keep them. Budgie eggs, they would eat those for sure.
But they're good on a mouse diet too.
Yeah, they appear to be. It's just they can absolutely get fat. There's this kind of growth pattern where you add a little bit of obesity and a little bit of inbreeding, and you have the weirdest looking hognose snake on earth. Their bodies will get huge, and then their heads look like they should be on a snake that's 40 to 50% smaller than the snake the head's on. I don't even know how to explain it. So when they're young, you can feed them a lot, but once they get to be adults, once a week. And a lot of people will feed hairless mice, because I think that the excess amount of hair and the keratin and what that might be the issue. A lot of people feed them just mice. And they do eat a lot of rodents in the wild. There's lots of records of them feeding on meadow voles and various species of mice that live in the habitats they live in. It's just it never appears that mice are the dominant part of their diet. So.
And when do you start doing the brumation? Is it from the get-go, their first winter? Are they getting a brumation, or are you?
Sorry, I am so scared of stunting my animals that I do just feed until they are the size I want them to be, and then I'm like, okay, now I can treat you like a normal animal. So I feed fairly consistently the first year and a half. You can get hogs to adult size in 2 years very easily. The biggest issue with them is just getting them to eat in the first place. Some of them eat right off the bat with pinkies. A lot of times you have to scent with tuna and lizards and toads, all kinds of craziness. But once they go, they have a tendency to just go, which is nice. But no, we get them to 10, 15 inches frequently in 2 years, a year and a half. And then once we get them to that size, that's when they will start doing the brumation the following year. You don't have to do that. That's just what I do.
They're so tiny.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
They're so tiny.
Well, what's super cool is because we're studying them in the wild, we actually have a good idea of what the growth rate is in the wild. One of the nutty things about our study site in Iowa, and I think about this every time I'm out there. So we lose a snake in our house and we don't find it again. Okay. I'm on a 500-acre prairie and we'll catch the same damn snake 8 times in a summer, like 1,000 meters away from where we caught it the first time. It's just not right. But anyway, so we have data from animals that we're pretty sure we know when they were captured. We only have a year and a half worth of data, but it looks like in the wild, these guys do grow. They don't grow as fast as things like racers and bull snakes are on the site, but they have a pretty steady growth rate. And so they're probably reaching sexual maturity 3 to 4 years in the wild because they don't have the choice of whether they're going to brumate or not. If they choose not to brumate, they die. So you add in that 4 months of inactivity. If you add that into, a 4-year time span to get to sexual maturity, 4 times 4 is 16. Can do that math. So our animals, if you don't brumate them, they're going to be reaching sexual maturity in a little bit under 3 years, which is what they do. So,
wow,
I don't have a problem with that.
And what are you giving them for temperatures and like basking spots during the normal time of the year?
So I give them, when they're in the vivs here, I have an area where they can get up to about 88, 90 degrees, but that area is about the size. It's probably a 4-inch diameter circle. And then it like radiates out from that area. It gets cooler and cooler and cooler to where you're in the 4 corners of their enclosures. It's usually sitting at about 72 to 74. And that arrangement for me seems to work. John keeps his animals in racks. John is the most clean snake keeper I have ever met in my life. This is his business. So he's redoing their substrate every 5 days. They get a new tub. So he is like on it. And I believe that he keeps the rooms. He does the whole room more so than the rack. He holds his rooms at like 84 to 88. And his snakes grow like weeds. I don't have to worry about stunted snakes ever from John. Sorry. I go into his collection sometimes. I'm like, how the hell did you get a 5-foot hognose snake? I don't even know how that's possible. Like, he has some big animal. So that works too.
And does he keep, what was his company name again?
Fathom Hogs.
Fathom Hogs.
If you're looking for a hog, go to John. I will say that.
And but he's not doing like any kind of locality or
he has some localities.
Oh, he does.
Yeah.
Okay.
But he has he does a lot of morphs. He's done the whole world's first thing a bunch.
Sure.
And so he uses his locality animals to outcross, to add heterogeneity to the morph lines and things like that. But I know he definitely has a couple locality specific lines that he keeps.
Ooh, yeah, I definitely want to be talking to him then.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
Yeah.
All right, buddy. Well, we'll wrap up. I do have one more question for you, though. I had Dr. Kevin Messenger on, who is a great dude, really great dude, such a sweetheart of a guy. And I asked him, I said, and somebody asked me this and I didn't know how to answer it. And it was kind of a fun question to ask him. And I want to ask you, what makes a rat snake a rat snake?
We call it that.
Well, he was telling me that I guess they have there's like a water snake that doesn't ever eat, and it's like a frog eating rat snake or something like that.
An Asiatic rat snake. I did air quotes if you're driving your car. It lives in water. I think it gives live birth. And it feeds on amphibians and reptiles, and that's about as not rat snake as you can get. So that's why I say we call it that. And the other thing that makes it really interesting asking that question is, like, North American rat snakes in the genus Pantherophis are completely different than tiger rat snakes in the genus Spilotes, which are in South America and Central America and Mexico, which are completely different than all the different rat snakes we have in Asia. So for me, being the anal-retentive taxonomist that I am, I have to have like context of which continent we're on. So for North America, the Pantherophis genus, which is our rat snakes, which includes Baird's rat snake, the black rat snake complex, Texas rat snake. We have Slowinski's rat snakes, Great Plains rat snakes, corn snakes, all of those guys, the kind of working definition is in cross section, they're shaped like a loaf of bread. So the ventral scales to the lateral scales on the side of their body, there's a 90-degree angle there. And they use that for climbing. So these guys are very arboreal as a general rule. So behaviorally, they're arboreal. They're oftentimes up, but you can find them on the ground frequently. They have a tendency to do niche partitioning with Lampropeltis. So the milk snakes and the king snakes. And so like here on the east, we've got the eastern king, Florida king. Those are more fossorial, eating all the rodents and everything that's down on the ground. And the corn snakes, yellow rat snakes, Everglades rat snakes, black rat snakes, they're going up and feeding heavily on birds and things that are up off the ground. The other thing that makes our rat snakes is our rat snakes lack a Duvernoy's gland. So
what is that?
That's the gland that hognose snakes have that makes it so they're venomous. So the rear fang snakes have a gland named after the guy that described it, Duvernoy. Okay. And our rat snakes lack that gland. So that's one of the like defining characteristics of a North American rat snake. They have that. And then they also have a tendency to be allied in forests that have like a complete forest structure where you have a shrub layer, a sub canopy, and a canopy. And they're one of the few snakes that can use all the layers. A lot of any snake can climb, but rat snakes are oftentimes going up.
Wow.
So for North American rat snakes, that would be my definition. But the term rat snake has a little bit of a colloquialism to it where it just kind of depends on where you're at.
Now I want to ask you another one. What's the difference between a reptile and an amphibian?
Oh, God. That's massive. So we're going to get uber nerdy. It is actually a cardinal sin by some people's definition that amphibians and reptiles are allied the way that they are.
Yeah.
Because like birds are more closely related to reptiles than reptiles are to amphibians. But when I teach herpetology, I got to teach about all the damn amphibians and all the reptiles. And it is insanely difficult to do that in 15 weeks. The big difference, we'll just do one difference because I seriously could talk for the next 10 hours and not be done. So one of the major differences is the way that they have their young. So amphibians have an egg that they lay in, usually either in water or in moist situations. Occasionally they retain it inside of them. But their egg, to get the bad out and the good in, it just relies on basic diffusion. So like there's more CO2 on the inside of the egg than on the outside of the egg. So the CO2 just moves out of the egg. And there's less oxygen on the inside of the egg than there is on the outside of the egg. So oxygen moves into the egg. So it's a very basic diffusion gradient. And they can do that because they live where there's water. Reptiles, their major achievement, which is why we don't live underwater, is they evolved an egg that can do that out of water. So their eggs are shelled and they have all these structures that amphibian eggs do not have. So they have an allantois, they have gas exchange, and they have a hard shell. So they encapsulate the pond inside their egg, whereas the amphibians have to go to the pond and lay their egg there. And
that's such a cool way to explain it.
And if you learn about egg anatomy, you'll never eat an egg the same way. And it's super, super cool.
That is wild. That's wicked cool. And crocodilians have a heart more like a bird's heart than they do like a lizard's heart, correct?
Yeah, well, croc hearts are the most complicated advanced hearts in the animal kingdom. Like,
really?
Oh, they got valves where they can just shut down half their heart and have the other half of their heart doing what they need to do. They have bypass valves. They can drop their metabolism down to next to nothing. And, if it's cool, they're incredible critters.
They really are.
Yeah.
I love them so much. I wish I could have them. They're my favorite.
If my dirty secret is if I could go back and know I would be financially secure, I would have become a crocodilian biologist because I like water. Alligators, there is nothing on earth that makes me turn into a blithering idiot more than a freaking alligator. I start drooling on myself and speaking in words that don't make, I just turn into a 10-year-old child.
Me
in
too.
Their presence. I've caught a lot of alligators, and I've caught some alligators I probably shouldn't have caught. So, but yeah, no, I just love them so much. I had a student, Casey Cannon. He does a lot of bredli breeding.
Yeah.
And he came to our master's program from Podcast Land, and he did his thesis at the St. Augustine Alligator Farm, and we got to go and meet, the curators and everything, and they took us behind the scenes, and that is one of the single greatest days of my life, because at the time they had every living crocodile came in, alligator, they had them all, and we were doing the tour, and they were like, well, do you want to work with these? And do you want to work with these? And we're walking up to an Orinoco croc. And then 2 minutes later, we're with the Cubans, and they're charging the fence, which would make most normal people crap their pants. And I was just giggling like an idiot. It's just cool every now and then to feel like you're part of the food chain. I like that,
Oh, yeah.
Cayman, another South American animal that doesn't get anywhere near the respect and talk that it should.
Yeah.
Saltwater crocs, Tomistoma, the false gharials. That was one of the animals that Casey worked on with his thesis. No, it was, because they just combine all of my favorite things, which is aquatic ecosystems and very large reptiles that own everything in their space. It's cool to be around animals that you're not in charge when you enter their enclosure. They are. I like that.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty cool dynamic.
I'm very fortunate that I get to see American alligators every day at work.
Yes. Oh, no, you are very fortunate.
And
I tell everyone that one of the reasons why my wife and I are still married is the house does not have 2 crocodiles in it. Because the second I lose that logical restraint, I would be the idiot that would be it's a Nile croc. It needs a home too. Do we need No, we don't need to do that. They're always at the Pittsburgh Reptile Show, which I do look at, and I'm kind of why? But we have a dwarf caiman in the Zooside collection that was surrendered to us from a flea market, and he's now reached sub-adult size. He's a solid 4.5 foot long, and he's a little spicy. He's just defensive, that's all. And we kind of have a hands-off policy, but anytime anybody needs to go in the enclosure, we don't let the students in there, and I have to go in there because I'm the director. It's also because the inner 10-year-old in my head is me. So,
oh, yeah, of course,
you know what I mean?
Man.
So,
you know what's so cool is you kind of took all of the addictions a 10-year-old boy has, and you turned it into a career. Because my son is obsessed with crawfish as well. If there are crawfish to be found, he will find them, and that when we went to Washington State, that was his obsession the entire time, was finding crawfish. And anywhere we go, if we go to Georgia, that's what he's looking for. Right. And it's just so funny that I know the path. I can see the path that he should be on as it's unfolding because of, his obsession with these animals, with these salamanders and crawdads, and then doing a PowerPoint presentation on hognose snakes without me saying a damn word.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, your teacher needs to be Dr. Zac Loughman one day.
I would love to teach him, man.
That needs to happen.
They're my favorite.
Yeah. I think it would be great. All right. One last question.
Go for it.
Why is Lucas Lee so special?
He was born that way.
Aww.
Yeah. Lucas Lee is one of my favorite humans too. Absolutely, he is. Unequivocally.
He's the best.
Just a ray of sunshine.
He is.
And what's funny is I had to get him through writing a thesis, and I had to get him through writing a thesis during COVID. And his project shifted 3 times. And each time it shifted, I'm not going to say there wasn't panic, because everybody panics when that happens, but he panicked in just such a chill way. like COVID was not fun to be a teacher, because everybody was like stressed out, and how are we going to do this? How am I going to graduate? We can't be together, but we have like, and Lucas, it was just like, I don't think this is going to work. And what was really funny is he was initially doing something with maternal incubation and Brettles pythons, and we needed more Brettles pythons. And who has more Brettles pythons than anyone alive? Nick. So we include Nick Mutton in this thing, and we're sending like eye buttons all over the place. And we had Brettles at West Liberty, and Lucas had his, and then Nick had his. And it was just so funny because the person who should have been freaking out was Lucas, and he wasn't. And meanwhile, Nick's like, where the hell's the data? I was like, it's going to be okay, man. Like, it's all good. It was really funny to me. But because he had that attitude, and we were like, what the hell are we, it just didn't work. And so I was writing my book at the time, and I was like, you know what? You really like womas. And we were trying to take this data set that someone had already collected in Australia, and we were trying to do the modeling, and I'm not really good at the modeling, but we were trying. And I just was like, why don't we just write a book? And Lucas was like, yeah, let's do that. And he was, 22, 23? Yeah. And now he keeps waiting on all of us, but that book will be out. And when that book is published, I'm going to do a mic drop and drink a beer in his honor, because it's been interesting. I just wrote my one part of it, which was the introduction, which was like a whopping 2.5 pages. I think it was nothing.
You're a hero.
But it will be, yes, exactly. I carried the entire project. No, Justin, Nick, and Lucas absolutely did. But no, it's going to be pretty cool when that finally comes to fruition, which should be by the end of the year, beginning of next year at the latest.
Hell yeah, man.
But no, Lucas is a fantastic person.
He is. He's such a good dude. Mm-hmm. And so are you. And I appreciate your time. Thank you so much for coming back on, man. I absolutely love talking to you. It's always a pleasure. Thank you, sir.
Well, I mean it. I'm in the podcast game too, and you are making us up our game in a good way. So
that means so much coming from you.
Yes. Well, thanks.